Welcome to tonight's regularly scheduled meeting of the Freeport City Council. It's Tuesday, January 20th, 2026, and the official time clock says it is 6 o'clock. So I will declare that a quorum is present, so we'll officially call this meeting to order. At this time, I will ask Councilman Rosso to please lead us in the pledge and the prayer.
Let's pray. Gracious Father, we're so grateful to come here today to make some decisions. Lord, give us the wisdom to say the right thing, do the right thing. We ask you to bless this council, the mayor, city manager, our lawyer, everyone under the sound of my voice. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
Pledge allegiance to the
flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible. Thank you, and you may be seated. Next, we have any matters subsequent to posting.
Yes, sir. Thank you. There was a monthly report from the fire department that was not posted with the agenda, but it was subsequently posted and sent to council members.
Thank you, ma'am. That brings us to audience participation. We are going to once again try our time clock behind us, so bear with us. We'll get it figured out. First we have Mr. Sam Reyna.
Mayor, Council, good evening. Mike? Can you hear me? My name is Sam Reyna, and I reside at 2002 North Avenue G.
Mr. Reyna, can you hold on a second?
Sure. You're not gonna charge me that extra second.
I'll support win, lose, or draw.
I can do damage with 1 second.
All right, Toby, we got it this far. I tried that. Oh, I didn't hit it hard enough.
Good.
Proceed.
Texas Ranger Aaron Arisendi's report of the allegations against Mr. Lance Petty. Arisendi found no criminal intent by Mr. Petty of a murder conspiracy plot. Unethical behavior, maybe, but not a conspiracy plot. There was no proof beyond a reasonable doubt, a key protection under the Fourth Amendment. A witch hunt and bad legal advice is all it was, and that will cost Freeport a lot of money. Ranger Arisendi was very careful and paid close attention to every detail, leaving nothing out, being very precise in his investigation. His analysis was correct. Mr. Les Petty is innocent of a murder conspiracy plot. It was a bunch of lies of two members of the governing body. Mr. Petty filed unemployment, and it was approved because Texas workforce determined he was terminated for reasons unrelated to his job performance. Then legal, Mr. Chris Duncan appealed that. They have claimed Ms. Donna Fisher didn't file properly. However, she's seen TWC what she had, which was meeting minutes. Lance was never given notice of disciplinary action, which is the norm here on lately. Has nothing in his HR file, never written up, reprimanded, and never had any complaints filed against him. He was terminated based solely on Peña's altered and edited audio accusations, the one that Ranger Arisendi disproved. Anyway,
Incorrect.
Lance That's enough, Peña. I've got the floor.
Count-
You can't rebut what's in it, Mayor.
Councilman Pena, Mr. Reyna has the floor.
Anyway, Lance Drew unemployment total in 2088 from June the 11th to July the 26th, which is 6 weeks, and he was entitled to that. He paid into it. July the 28th, he went back to work and unemployment ended. The city doesn't subscribe to unemployment. Instead, they are billed quarterly for any draws. I'll be willing to bet that Mr. Chris Duncan has billed more than the 2,088 arguing the claim. 3,000, 4,000, 5,000, I really don't know. What I do know is that the city lost money and Mr. Duncan made money. I met Ranger Arizendi 12 years ago when he was assigned to the Webster's office. He gave me advice and directions on how to bring Jeff Pines and his corruptive administration to justice. Ex-city manager Jeff Pines received a 10-year sentence. And here we are again, same dilemma, different characters, and the result will be the same. I will see one of you in prison, and I will see the other one disbarred. I have plenty of time. I'm finished with all my obligations. 26 is mine, so I will be your worst nightmare. Thank you.
Thanks, sir. Next, we have Mr. Thomas Cool.
Hello, City Council. Can I approach the bench?
Yes, sir.
Look, I want to pass some pictures, and I got things written out. Please, read them. I'm passing one on to the side, y'all just cross them. They say different things. And if y'all don't mind, can I just stand here with the camera facing me?
We'll need you to talk through the mic. That way people at home can hear you.
Well, I wanted the
There-
people, the citizens, to get y'all's reactions. Okay. You already know that Pecan and 4th Street here in Freeport is a dangerous intersection, or else y'all wouldn't post it up that sign. Imagine yourself, your spouse, your children, your grandkids, having to go through that intersection on a daily basis. Put yourself in our shoes. We're tax-paying shoes. The citizens who voted y'all into office, and maybe y'all might feel the way we do, scared, terrified, with no peace of mind, to post a dangerous intersection sign up there. Everyone already knows that's a dangerous intersection. It's like rubbing it in our face. Y'all know it. We need and want a four-way stop on 4th and Pecan Street. No other place here in the city of Freeport is there a dangerous intersection sign posted up. And this is a residential area. Y'all not reading that, are y'all? Y'all don't care about the citizens of Freeport. 3 schools within blocks away. 4th and Pecan Street is a busy intersection 7 days a week. Not only school days. How would you like it? You're gonna go pick up your kids at school. How would you like it if your kid's gonna go pick up your grandchildren from one of them schools? You know? Come on. Y'all don't go through this. Y'all don't live in that neighborhood. Y'all don't know what's going there. Residents just avoid that intersection if possible. They do. Something needs to be done. I can only go back 10 years on the crashes there on the intersection. A man testified here a few months ago that his own children got T-boned on that intersection. Come on, it's happening. The residents that told me that throughout the years how many accidents been there. City manager, I know you just been here a little while. Last year I witnessed one, it was bad. The year before I witnessed another one and it was bad. In 2017 I witnessed another one and it was bad. City attorney, y'all better watch out. I don't want to do this, But if something happens, I'm gonna get with the victims to support them, to get the city of Freeport involved in litigations. That, look at the dangerous intersection that y'all put up in the residential neighborhood. Testimonies from one of y'all's sergeants here, another one from a corporal here, another one from a public works employee that was putting up one of them signs. Come on, accidents are coming. History says that. The citizens of Freeport are tired of living in fear, having to worry about family members, friends, and so on, who's going to be the next victim. And if y'all really put yourself in our shoes, maybe, just maybe, y'all might feel the fear of 4th Street and Pecan Street here in Freeport. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Cool.
Y'all can have them pictures, please. I wish y'all would read.
Mayor, can I get a copy of Mr. Poole's sign-in sheet? Take a look at it. I'd like to get his phone number.
Yeah, I'll hand it to you after.
Thank you, please.
Next, we have Miss Maria Lopez.
Good evening, Mayor, Council, and residents of Freeport. For those of you that don't know, my name is Maria Lopez, and I'm the Main Street Coordinator. I'm here to share a quick update on the positive direction Freeport Main Street is heading. First, I want us to pause and feel proud. Being recognized as a Main Street community is not just a label. It means we're part of something proven and meaningful. A framework that helps towns like ours create momentum, build partnerships, and deliver visible results. I'm also proud to report that the Main Street program is strengthening its foundation. We're holding regular board meetings, staying organized, and following through with annual goals. We're not just talking about progress, we're tracking it. We've also been honest about where work still needs to be done, and we're actively identifying strategies to address those areas. This is what forward motion looks like: a steady effort, measurable action, and willingness to improve. A big part of that progress is collaboration. We've been working closely with Freeport EDC and other city staff, aligning where we can, sharing goals, and building coordination that helps downtown move as one team instead of separate parts. We've also made it easier for the public to see what's happening. The Main Street tab of the city website has been revamped, and it's becoming a central place to learn more about the program, events, and key downtown resources. Importantly, the comprehensive downtown plan and historic district design guidelines are posted there, always visible, because we want planning and preservation to be transparent and accessible. None of this momentum happens alone. We're grateful for sponsorships from BASF, Texas Gulf Bank, and Port Freeport. That support goes beyond funding. These sponsorships have created positive partnerships that strengthen the Main Street program and connect downtown revitalization to the broader success of our community. And we're already seeing what that momentum can produce. Christmas on Main, our inaugural tree lighting event, brought families and visitors downtown, increased awareness of our historic district, and reminded us that downtown can be a place where Freeport comes together. It wasn't just a nice night, it was proof that what's possible when the community shows up. Looking ahead, we're building on that energy. We have future events planned, including a downtown community walk, a historic preservation workshop, which is very important for the community to know and build awareness on, and more new events coming that will keep drawing people downtown and strengthening community pride. And I'll close with this. Please hang in there with us as we continue shifting toward targeted goals tied to the comprehensive downtown plan and the historic district design guidelines. Thank you for your time, and thank you for supporting Freeport Main Street.
Thank you, Ms. Lopez. Next, we have Mr. Manning Rollerson.
Good evening, council. Good evening, council.
Good evening.
There's something that I'm concerned about, and I listened to Mr. Chino about Ranger Alex or whoever he is. I remember when he came here, we asked him to investigate what was going on with the East End in the city of Freeport. He didn't have time to do it. So at the end of the day, his judgment call doesn't mean nothing to me, okay? When you have audio recording, and the reason why it was recorded, we still don't know, okay? So when it comes down when a ranger listens to an audio recording and make a judgment call, he ain't seen no crime, well, I'm truly upset about that because I made a social media post telling one of my workers at International Longshoremen's Union I was gonna break his legs. Totally different from somebody talking about unaliving somebody. So I find that the ranger report is a crock of crap, okay? And I am gonna have an investigation done on the ranger and Brazoria County because I've been charged 4 times with terroristic threat out of the city of Freeport, Texas. So the ranger, the prosecutor's office, and the county judges, they already know that they on notice based on an investigation by Homeland with the concerns of organized crime from the prosecutor's office. So when the ranger says things like that, I don't take it with a grain of salt because at the end of the day, he's compromised in this good old boy system. So let's get that on the record. Also, I want to know why the elected body would not defend this city from $1 million lawsuit when y'all represent us and the assets of this city. Every last one of y'all that turned against the city, you need to resign. Because you are elected, Mr. Matamoros is not funny. You are elected by the people. And your concerns, when you sit there and laugh like it's funny, it shows you have no respect for the people that elected you. Okay? This is a concern when the people that we have to depend on will turn their backs on the citizens that they represent. Mr. Matamoros, you take this as a game, but the future of my grandchildren matters in the decisions that you make. You must take more emphasis on doing what you're doing for this public. Because this city hasn't seen growth in 57 years. Toxically poisoned, leading in the state of Texas. This county alone kills more people by toxic poisoning. And you sit there and laugh and be arrogant. Doesn't work, my brother. You represent us. And it's time for y'all to do what's necessary for this city. It's not about Dow. It's not about none of these industries. It's about Freeport and the people of Freeport and the directions we're going. So you should take more respect into what you leader. A leader shows respect, Mr. Matamoros. Both of you guys are wrong because you represent us, the people. And when y'all turn against the people that y'all elect, then that shows that you don't represent us and we cannot trust you. And trust is the factor of all of this in governance. It's been happening too long in this city. And we're still on the nonsense of fighting every council meeting. We're not going nowhere like this. Nowhere. We're just fighting one another. And citizens coming up here throwing rocks at one another, and we got issues that show this city ain't did nothing in 57 years.
Stick around and you'll hear my response.
You know, you need to find somebody to play with, because I'm not your child. Go play with your children. It's about the people of the city. And look what it represents, you Freeport. Something like that.
All right, we made it through that. Can you pass this down to Councilman Pena? We'll look it back when you're finished. Moving on. Yes, sir.
I have 1 second, Mayor. That the city hall, the lights at the old city hall, they stay on 24/7. That's the light at Judith. Do we need to have them on?
We'll take that in consideration.
Thank you.
Next, we have proclamations and presentations and updates. Dr. Kelly.
Thank you. I just want to remind everybody that the Just FOIA live date is going to be sometime in February. That's a new online system to request documents. We have the Daddy-Daughter Dance February 6th at Freeport River Place from 6 to 8:30. We have Celebrating Black History Month February 7th at Freeport Museum from 11 a.m. to 3 p.m. We have 80 years of the Wednesday Review Club in Freeport February 12th at the Freeport Museum at 11 a.m.
A lot of good stuff coming up. Next, we have the consent agenda. The consent agenda includes 3A, action regarding the minutes of December 29th, 2025, and the January 5th, 2026 meetings. 3B, action approving resolution number 2026-3018 for the joint election agreement and contract for election services with Brazoria County and the City of Freeport. We have 3C, action approving the monthly financial report through December 31st, 2025. 3D, action approving resolution number 2026-3019, authorizing the fiscal year 2026 criminal justice grant application, grant number 5104302, the radio system modernization project. 3E, action approving resolution number 2026-3020, authorizing fiscal year 2026 criminal justice grant application, grant number 5442501, the dispatch console replacement project. Then we have 3F, action approving resolution number 2026-3021, authorizing the fiscal year 2026 bullet-resistant components grant application, grant number 5465001, the ballistic vehicle safety project. Then we have 3G, action approving resolution number 2026-3022, authorizing the fiscal year 2026 SLCGP mitigation grant application, grant number 5479601, the Resilient Backup and Network Modernization Project. Council, I will entertain a motion.
Mayor, I'm going to make a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
We have a motion to approve by Councilman Matamoros. Is there a second?
Yes, I'll second.
Second by Councilman Rosso. Any discussion needed on this, gentlemen? Questions, comments?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
I was actually curious to know about the items here, the 3D, 3E, 3F, and 3G, as they relate to the budget. And I was going to ask if either the city manager or the police chief can explain whether or not they are budget neutral, number one. And then as far as the monthly financial report, I wanted to ask Ms. Hurst if there were any surprises, any shortfalls, or any overages that were unforeseen, and any items that the city is required to pay that were not paid and or discovered. Those were my questions before we vote, and I'd like an answer to those.
Okay, Chief Howell?
Yes, good evening, Mayor, Council. So these grants are actually grants that we applied for previously, and so every time that we have a change of city management, we have to do an updated resolution, but we just recently found out that we can actually do a resolution that says city manager, the position, and not the person. So we'll be doing that in the future, so we don't have to keep bringing these back to you. Regarding as far as the items, different ones have different requirements. The one that actually we'll be discussing further tonight is the dispatch furniture, and that is 100% grant funded and requires no match. So that one has already been approved. We've already been granted that money, and that's the item that we'll be discussing later on in the business agenda tonight.
And then the other ones are also fully paid through the grants?
I don't remember if all three of those were fully paid for. I want to say one of them does have a match, but I don't recall which one, and we're still waiting to hear from those.
Okay. And do you have any idea on the, well, that's not your department. The one that we're trying to wait on about the match, do we know what that number is?
I don't, because I don't even remember which. I'd have to go log into the grant system, excuse me, to see which grant that was.
All right. Thank
It's
you.
generally usually either a 10, 15, or 20% match.
Got it. Thank you, Chief.
And these are technically on the agenda just so we put Dr. Kelly.
Yes, so like we already have where we need to get her set up, but we need to have the resolution to be able to give the grant people, so then that way we can set up and she can authorize, so we can be able to move forward on making those purchases. Or getting the reimbursement anyway.
No changes to the grants that.
No, it just would allow us to be able to file for reimbursement and her to accept the funds.
Thank you, Chief.
Thank you, Chief.
Okay.
And
I
then
do not see Ms. Hurst, so Dr. Kelly, do you have any answers for?
I have not been informed of any issues with the budget ending December 31st.
Okay, I appreciate it. Thank you.
Any other questions or comments, gentlemen? Hearing none, we'll call the vote. All those in favor to approve, state aye. Aye. All opposed, state nay.
Nay.
Motion carries 4-1, with Councilman Pena being the nay.
Mayor, before we proceed, I'd like to ask if, two things. Number one, on 4A, if we can get this tabled, I'm still waiting for some information from the city of Galveston, and also from Surfside, number one and number two. The second thing here, well, that's number one. Number two is, there's been a lot of complaints about council getting messages throughout the meeting, and I'm just kind of curious, can we have the council have all of their cell phones put in a basket, and if they need to make a call, they can do it at the end of the meeting or step outside? And I'm just wondering what the legalese on that is, because if we're
Councilman
communicating.
Pena?
Yes, sir.
This sounds like a subject that we might want to talk about on work session.
Well, I'm just wondering, because I don't want to go through another meeting where we have folks basically getting text messages from residents or other constituents that
Councilman
are-
Pena, this is a subject matter that we should talk about on work session.
Well, I'm just asking, so you don't want to do that throughout this
I
meeting?
think that is not on the agenda.
Yeah.
So it belongs on your work session.
So I'll bring it up on work session then.
That's fine. Thank you. Right now, we're on agenda item 4A.
Real quickly, Mayor, would everybody volunteer at least to put their phones up on the counter like Councilman Davis just did?
Agenda item 4A, it's a public workshop to discuss and take possible action regarding the maintenance and development of the beach plan for Freeport's Bryan Beach.
Yeah, as I just mentioned, Mayor, I wanted to table that one there until I get some additional information. Everybody was busy here, I think, with the MLK weekend, preparing for the festivities.
We have a motion to table again by Councilman Pena. Is there a second?
A second.
Second by Councilman Davis. Any discussion needed, gentlemen? Hearing none, I'll call the vote. All those in favor to table state aye.
Aye.
All opposed state nay. Nay. Motion to table carries 4-1. Agenda item 4B, Consideration and possible action approving ordinance number 2026-2757, calling the City of Freeport's annual general election to be held on Saturday, May 2nd, 2026, for the purpose of electing city council members for Ward A and C, and authorizing qualified voters residing in those wards to vote for the respective candidates. Dr. Kelly.
Thank you. Staff recommends approving the ordinance calling a general election on May 2nd, 2026 for the purpose of electing city council members for Council Ward A and Council Ward C, and authorizing election administration through the Brazoria County Elections Office under the joint election agreement and contract for election services. The candidate applications are being accepted between January 14th, 2026, and must be filed no later than 5 p.m. on February 13th, 2026. Early voting period is April 20th to the 28th, and that's administered by Brazoria County. On Election Day, there is one location in the city, and that's the Freeport City Library at 410 North Brazosport Boulevard, and we're also allowing voting at Brazoria County polling sites. Vote by mail deadlines, application for ballot by mail must be received, not postmarked, but received by April 20th, 26th, and that's being handled by the county as well.
Thank you, Dr. Kelly. Council, I will entertain a motion.
Mayor, I'm going to make a motion to approve the ordinance 2026-2757 as presented.
We have a motion to approve by Councilman Matamoros. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Seconded by Councilman Davis. Any discussion needed on this item, gentlemen? Hearing none, I will call the vote. All those in favor state aye. Aye. All opposed state nay. Motion carries unanimously. Agenda item 4C, consideration and possible action approving ordinance number 2026-2758, calling a charter amendment election for the City of Freeport to be held on Saturday, May 2nd, 2026. Dr. Kelly.
Thank you. Staff recommends that City Council adopt an ordinance calling a charter amendment election to also be held on May 2nd, 2026, for the purpose of submitting 5 proposed charter amendments as follows. Amendment number 1, shall the charter be revised to eliminate conflicting language to fill council vacancies and conform with state law? Amendment 2, shall the charter be revised to require any legally valid development agreement rather than only an agreement under Chapter 380 approved by council before expenditure of public funds for economic development can be authorized? Proposed Amendment 3, shall the charter be revised to reflect that all city taxes shall be payable to the Brazoria County Tax Assessor Collector at the place and methods designated by the Brazoria County Tax Assessor Collector? Proposed number 4 amendment, shall the charter be revised to provide that the city shall not violate state or federal law when producing records to the public? Proposed amendment number 5, shall the charter be revised to provide that except for the Main Street Board, the Historical Commission, and the Economic Development Corporation, no person shall be qualified to serve on a city council appointed board unless they are a resident of the city of Freeport, Texas?
Thank you, Dr. Kelly.
Mayor, I'm going to make a motion to approve ordinance 2026-2758 as presented.
We have a motion to approve by Councilman Matamoros. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Rosso. Any questions or comments on this, gentlemen?
Yeah, I have a couple of questions.
Yes, sir.
The first one here is on number 5. I'd be willing to move forward with this as long as we remove the requirement for, or the exception, I should say, of Main Street Historical Commission and EDC allowing non-residents of Freeport. That's the first question. And the second question I have is, when is the deadline to include any additional amendments to the charter?
Mr. Duncan, do you have
Question for
that
Mr. Duncan.
answer? Or do you, Dr. Kelly?
City Attorney.
Well, typically, these are all presented and considered by the time that we get to this meeting here today. I think legally, the deadline will be the second week of February.
All right.
We usually do it a few weeks, pass the ordinance a few weeks early, so it's usually the ordinance is passed, I think typically the second meeting of January.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. No further questions.
That's it. Anyone else? Hearing none, I'm going to call the vote. All those in favor state aye. Aye. All opposed state nay.
Nay.
Motion carries 4-1. Councilman Pena being the nay. Next, we have agenda item 4D, consideration and possible action approving resolution number 2026-3023 to declare city equipment as surplus and authorize auction. Dr. Kelly.
Thank you. Staff recommends City Council approve the resolution deeming the used water meter surplus property and authorize auctioning the equipment. The city recently completed a water meter replacement project, which resulted in about 3,800 meters being extra that the city no longer uses. There has been some interest in them from surrounding cities that still use that old technology, and we've also received a quote or a bid proposal from a company that would potentially rehab the meters, and that was $5,500. While the quote has expired, there's always the potential to reach back out to those companies. It's been my experience that there's definitely a market for these meters, and I think the city would do well to at least try to get some bids for them.
Thank you, Dr. Kelly. Council, is there a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the seeking out of multiple bids to get a higher price on those meters.
Okay, we have a motion to approve by Councilman Pena. Is there a second?
A second.
And a second by Councilman Davis. Any questions or comments?
Can he clarify his language on that? Because
On the motion,
on the motion, yes.
What's the question?
can you clarify your motion?
What's the question, to clarify?
Can you restate your motion? Because you said to a motion to rebid,
Okay,
and
I will make a motion to approve the resolution as Ms. Kelly has drafted it for the council this evening. How's that? Does that make sense?
that does make sense.
Well, for him is the question.
So, Councilman Davis, will you withdraw your second to the original motion?
Oh, yeah, that wasn't the same? All right.
It
yeah.
wasn't.
All right,
All right.
yeah.
Now, Councilman Pena, will you make the motion?
Yeah. Let's approve it.
Motion to approve as written.
As written.
Is there a second?
Yes, sir.
All right, we're back to Councilman Pena approving with Councilman Davis seconding it. Any other discussion, gentlemen? Hearing none, we'll call the vote. All those in favor state aye. Aye. All opposed state nay. Motion carries unanimously. Agenda item 4E, consideration and possible action approving the purchase of police vehicles for the Freeport Police Department. Lieutenant Graham.
Good evening, council.
Good evening. I was told to be easy on you.
That's all right. So Chief Howell asked me to come up for this one. It's staff recommends the approval of purchase of 3 vehicles for the police department from Sames Government Fleet Sales. The police department's looking to replace 3 vehicles as part of the annual rotation. So we would be purchasing 1 vehicle for patrol, a 2025 Ford F-150 police responder. That's replacing a 2016 Chevy Tahoe that's currently out of service. 1 vehicle would be for the patrol lieutenant, that would be for me. That's a 2025 Ford Police Interceptor, replacing a 2017 Ford Explorer. And then 1 vehicle for the animal control officer. It's a 2025 Ford F-150 to replace a 2015 Chevy Silverado. So we did obtain 3 quotes from 3 different vendors. Same's Government Fleet Sales being the lowest of those. They are on the TIPS contract, total of $184,947.85. And that would be out of the $350 that was budgeted for vehicle purchases. There are some additional expenses that aren't included in that, but that is the vehicle and a portion of the upfitting and lighting purchases.
These items were already in the budget?
Yes.
All right, so this isn't an extra ask?
Nope.
I'll approve.
We have a motion to approve by Councilman Pena. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second by Councilman Davis. Council, any questions or comments for Lieutenant Graham?
Lieutenant Graham, you don't have to have this and tell me now, but you did just state that there's going to be extra upfitting costs. Do y'all have an approximate amount? And will it still keep you under the $350,000 budgeted for the, in the budget?
I don't know that I have that amount, but there are funds left over out of the amount to, that we are still well under the $350,000 at this point.
Okay, thank you.
What's that difference?
Yeah, I don't have the number. I would have to go back and pull the total on all of it.
Dr. Kelly mentioned it's about 15,000.
115.
115,000. I didn't hear the 100 part of it.
Thank you, Dr. Kelly.
I think we can get a lot more done with that extra 100. Any other questions or comments, gentlemen? I'll call the vote. All those in favor state aye. Aye. All opposed state nay. Motion carries unanimously.
Thank you.
Thank you. Agenda item 4F, consideration and possible action approving the purchase of police dispatch console furniture for the Freeport Police Department. Chief Howell.
Good evening again, Mayor, Council. So this is one of the grants resolutions that we did earlier. Like I said, this is 100% funded. We were already awarded this grant, but we were awarded it under previous administration. So we just need to now update that to Dr. Kelly, which is what we did earlier. So now we're ready to go ahead and move forward to be able to sign for the purchasing. We had gotten with the city attorney, had him review over the contract, and what this will be is this will be the furniture that's up in dispatch. Right now it's set up where dispatch can run 2 dispatchers at a time, which is generally what we do on a day-to-day basis when we're full staff. However, when we have big events, or even like you take the hurricane into play, at that time we run sometimes 3, 4, 5 dispatchers. And back during Beryl, we were running 4 to 6 dispatchers at a time due to the large call volume that we were receiving, and we did not have areas for those dispatch to be able to set up at with phones, with computers. And this new furniture would now allow us to be able to have multiple stations in case of those emergency situations.
Council, is there a motion?
I'll approve.
Motion to approve by Councilman Pena. Is there a second?
A second.
Second by Councilman Rosso. Any further questions or comments?
Well, same question. This was already approved in the budget, is that right?
Yes, so this is what you'd consider budget neutral. It's not going to affect the budget in any form. We'll initially make the payment, and then the grant will reimburse us once we submit that invoice. And so Ms. Hurst would make those adjustments, and she's created a different category now for us to be able to process grants through.
And this isn't just the chair or the desk, this is kind of the whole workstation, is that right?
Yes, this is like the desk, the mounts, with the plugs, for them to be able to run different cables in, the chairs as well. But yeah, this will be the entire workstation.
So we could just plug in another dispatcher as needed.
Yes.
Perfect. That's great.
Council, any other questions or comments? I'll call the vote. All those in favor state aye. Aye. All opposed state nay. Motion carries unanimously.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you, Chief. Agenda item 4G, consideration and possible action to remove board members illegally added to boards. Councilman Matamoros.
Thank you, Mayor. So I put this on the agenda because it was brought up about adding board members to boards who do not attend a meeting per the ordinance. And so the Board of Adjustments, there were 2 people appointed.
Councilman Matamoros, I'm going to ask you the same thing as I asked Councilman Pena. Let's read the agenda, and then let's go into discussion after a motion's made. Thank you.
Okay. So item summary, board members are appointed and serve at the will of council. At a previous council meeting, it was presented that prospective board members need to attend both meetings to be considered for appointment by council. This was not followed on the Board of Adjustments. Thus, the recent appointments are illegal per our city attorney. And in the supporting documentation, you'll see the memo and the minutes from the Board of Adjustments meeting that occurred on 11/13/2025.
Thank you, Councilman.
I'll make a motion to table.
We have a motion to table by Councilman Pena. Well, hold on. Per our ordinance, he who submits the agenda item has the opportunity to make the motion.
I don't believe that's correct, Mayor.
Is that correct, legal?
I think it's the person who's a liaison gets to make the motion of a board member election, but not on.
Hold on, Council.
I don't recall our ordinance or resolution procedure saying that the person that put it on the agenda has the first opportunity to make the motion. However, I believe that would be a good idea to follow that. And, I kind of go back to what I said, I think, the prior meeting or two ago, where I'm like, okay, look, the vote, procedural moves, I don't think should change the vote of the council, right? So the vote will be the vote. So I don't think there's any legal requirement to let Councilman Matamoros make his motion first. I think there would be a courtesy that the person that put it on the agenda be allowed to, make their explanation and make their motion. So, I think that if the council, if there is a second on a motion to table, right, that the council would consider allowing Mr. Matamoros to at least, make his motion on his item, not table the motion and allow him to make his motion, so that we're not in the practice of trying to get in a race. So I think ultimately the motion to table is proper, because I don't know that we have a specific resolution forbidding that. So it just depends if there's a second by another councilman.
All right. With that being said, we have a motion to table on the floor by Councilman Pena. Is there a second? Motion fails by lack of a second. Is there another motion?
Mayor, I'm going to make a motion to remove Tom Pearson and Landis Adams from the Board of Adjustments, effective immediately.
We have a motion on the floor to remove Mr. Tom Pearson and Landis Adams from the Board of Adjustments immediately. Is there a second? That motion is seconded by Councilman Rosso. Now the discussion, gentlemen.
Okay, so I presented the minutes from the Board of Adjustments meeting that had the item to discuss and take possible action of reviewing board members' applications for council to approve. And at that meeting, Mr. Tom Pearson and Landis Adams were not present. The only two people who were added to that board, and they were added as alternates, was Con McCleister and Miss Margaret Bachman, and thus they were the only two eligible to be added to the Board of Adjustments at that time. That is why I've asked for this item to be brought to the agenda.
Thank you, Councilman. Any other questions or comments, gentlemen?
Yeah, I have some comment. I prepared a memo and sent it to all council members about this issue after the meeting, when those appointments were made. When the issue was presented, and I went through the legal reasoning. So I'll go through that again so that there's no confusion. All right, going back to, I think, Mayor Bass, the city council started to have a policy. It was not a written rule, it was not a resolution, it was not an ordinance, but there was a policy that before the council made an appointment to a board, they wanted to know the opinion of the board that was serving. If they had any preference, they had any recommendation of who they would like to see appointed as information to the council, that the council could take that into consideration. When we passed the resolution regarding, or ordinance regarding the appointment of board appointments, that ordinance was written to apply both to the city council and to the individual boards. So the way that it works is as follows. The board is not required to make a recommendation. That's the board's choice. It's not a legal requirement. The boards may decide, hey, we don't want to make a recommendation. We'll just let council decide whoever they want to choose. If the board wants to make a recommendation, then the board is required to follow the procedures, which is that the person must be present. They must have everybody that's present that wants to be recommended by that board has to be given an opportunity to make a presentation of why they think they would be a good person on the board. And then the board votes and then selects their recommendation. If the board makes a recommendation and does not follow that procedure, then the council cannot consider that person because the board's recommendation did not follow the rule. So if you get to that where the board didn't follow the rule and made a recommendation, then the council cannot consider that recommendation and must consider the other applicants. And so then we move on to the step number 2 with city council. And so the council will consider the other applicants, and the same rules apply at this council meeting, which would be the applicant has to be present. They have to give each applicant an opportunity to come forward and explain why they think they would be allowed to be on the board. So that if the board recommends a person, but they didn't follow the requirements, then that person is eliminated and the council can consider all other applicants. And so under that rule, if the persons that were appointed by the council, if they were not the recommended candidate from the board, they're not required to be there at the board meeting. That requirement applies to the recommendation of the board, right? So the board can't, bottom line is the board can't, if the board recommends somebody and doesn't follow the rules, then that person is eliminated, and then council can consider anybody that's an applicant that's at the council meeting. So, yeah, and I put this down in writing in a memo that I sent to everybody after that meeting where the issue came up. And so I don't believe that, well, under the ordinance, the appointments that were made were not illegal unless they were the appointments of the recommended person from the board and the board didn't follow the procedures. So I don't think that that's the case in those appointments. So my opinion is that they were not illegal appointments. The council is not required to remove those persons appointed. However, the council can at any time. You know, every board member serves at the pleasure of council. So if the question is, are we required to remove them because they were illegally appointed, the answer is no. If it's, can we legally remove these people for whatever reason we want to, then the answer to that is yes. So Councilman Matter Morris's motion was he would like to remove these people. His motion was not, I want to remove these people because they are illegally appointed. That was his discussion, but that was not his actual motion, right? So I just want to clarify, under the ordinance, they were not illegally appointed. You are not required to remove them. However, the council always has the opportunity to appoint and remove people on the boards as they see fit.
Thank you, sir. Council, any other questions or comments on this?
Yeah, I have a couple of questions.
Yes, sir.
I guess this kind of gets to the root of it all. If it's not illegal, and that was the premise of the agenda item, I mean, I saw the memo that went out to council. That's why I wanted to table this. And so here we are now. I'm wondering why we want to remove 2 citizens from participating on a board when, as we've been echoing on multiple occasions, how difficult it is to get folks on these boards. And so I'm curious if the reason to put this on the agenda was because the appointment of those particular individuals was considered illegal, and that has been proven to be wrong tonight and also 2 weeks ago. I want to know, number one, if they want to withdraw the motion. Number two, if they don't, Mr. Matamoros, I should say, why you want them removed. And also, I'd like to hear from either Mr. Adams and Mr. Pearson. And I don't know if Mr. Adams is here, but I see Mr. Pearson in the audience. And I want to know if he's going to be removed, if he's going to still want to participate. Or does he want to be removed, or for that matter, just resign? So those are my questions. First to Councilman Matamoros, and then also to Mr. Pearson and Mr. Adams.
Councilman Matamoros, do you have a response?
So I did read the email that was presented to all of us. And when I read it, I had already sent my agenda item in. But now I've just heard the explanation. And it sounds like that they want a quorum of talking about an agenda item on a board to be decided. That way they can say, well, we want this person, this is going to be our nominee, we want this person to make sure that they're here at the meeting, when that's not what we want and what we can do. So I had this item on the agenda because of what happened last meeting. Ms. Oldham was not put on a board because of what was written down in the ordinance. And so I'm just following what is written down in the ordinance. I don't have anything against any of the two members who are, I've asked to be removed. I just want to make sure that we are not holding the city in any type of legal issue because we didn't follow the ordinance. That's all.
Thank you, Councilman. Yes, sir.
Okay, anytime we vote on a board member and we get a recommendation from the board, okay, correct me if I'm wrong, the council does not have to go with that recommendation, even though the board recommended someone to be appointed to the board. We don't have to go with that recommendation. We can make our own recommendation.
That is correct.
So, you know, that's kind of, I mean, it doesn't matter, you know, on what just happened. Like, if we didn't agree with that, then we could pick someone else. And as we were, you know, listening to the candidates up here, I mean, as a citizen of Freeport, as a council member, I mean, the way we should pick board members is off of what they say and what they bring to the table. And, you know, that's why, I mean, I said that at the meeting, you know, that's why my vote went that way, even though the recommendation was some other way. But, you know, just by the experience and by the presentation that, you know, the citizen had came up and presented to us up here in the board. So if you're looking at the rule and it says, and that's the ordinance, so if you could, I mean, you can pull it up. It sound like they need to read it. They need to hear you read it again, what it actually say. So if it comes down, if it goes there and the people not there that's recommended, then that's against the rule. But if it comes here and they're all here and we don't agree with the recommendation, then we can go another route. And that's just what happened based on the presentations that were given up here in front of us. So nothing illegal happened in my eyes, from what I hear that was read, because we can change it either way it go. So that's why, that's all. I just wanted to point that out.
Council, any other questions or comments?
I still have my two questions that I'd like answered, but the first one here, it seems like, okay, yeah, nothing was done illegally, it was all done properly. And again, you have two citizens here that are interested in trying to help serve the city. They made their case, they had their experiences, and so that's been done. But if we're going to take this to a vote, I'd like to hear from Mr. Pearson on what his thoughts are on this.
Mr. Pearson, would you like to chime in on this?
Well, as a board member, I'd like to hear his response to this. Unless he's interested in resigning from it.
You asked the
Are you interested in
question,
resigning,
so
Mr. Pearson?
I'm seeing if he wants to come up and say his 5 cents.
We can come on up.
Yeah, when I signed up for the Board of Adjustment position, I signed up so if I could help out in the city with that position, that was great.
Mm-hmm.
The only thing I didn't really like during that presentation was that the lady from Bridge Harbor, which was already an alternate, I think she should have been elected to the board as a permanent person instead of me. She already knows what's all about. She makes every meeting, and I will be in the learning process. So that's, if I can help out, that's great, whatever y'all decide.
So are you stating that you want to forfeit your position so that Miss, I think it was Miss Bachman could be
Right.
considered again, or for that matter, any other candidates?
Yeah, I mean, myself, I felt like she should have been elected.
Okay. So you're okay then if the council decides to remove you, or would you still be willing to honor that, that membership on that board?
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think
Wherever I help out.
I think you would. I think you'd be useful there. Yeah, thank you.
I got another question.
Yes, sir.
Is she still an alternate?
She is still an
Oh, then
alternate.
she's still contributing.
Okay, so if he
Is absent.
was like to take back his spot, but he can go to the alternate spot, would you want to do that?
It's so elected, yes. I'd rather me be an alternate and have her as a permanent since she is already in the board
Yes, sir.
meetings all the time.
Yes, sir.
And council would have to vote on
And
that.
then now you can learn and you can get, yeah, okay, I got you. That's good.
Any other questions or comments, gentlemen?
Well, I would say that I'd be interested in seeing it modified, because it sounds like Mr. Pearson is willing to serve. He's not saying he's unequivocally just not interested in serving. And so either we, again, not make any vote, or if he wants to resign, to just give us notice. But it doesn't sound like Mr. Adams is interested in resigning, and so I'm not sure why we would want to punish anybody else that didn't do anything improper or illegally in terms of them being voted on to the board. So if we want to be thinking about having Ms. Bachman on that board, she is a board member now, she is an alternate. If Mr. Pearson is not present, I think the procedure is that then Ms. Bachman is able to assume the seat. And if Mr. Pearson misses 3 meetings in a row, well, then that position opens up, where then we can deliberate and vote as to whether any candidate, Ms. Bachman included, should serve in that spot. So it's not my understanding at all that the board positions can just be shuffled around at the discretion of the board member, and/or for that matter, at council in any kind of fell swoop, but there is actually a procedure to it. But again, I'm hearing from Mr. Pearson that he's happy to serve, so I don't know why we want to remove him.
Thank you, Councilman. You know, when we first run into this the other night, when the recommendation was to appoint Miss Oldham, and we were told she couldn't be appointed because she wasn't at the meeting. Okay. At that point in time, the resolution that we passed, you know, I didn't read that into that resolution. It wasn't until legal sent out the email that he so eloquently told us just a few minutes ago that it explained exactly what the resolution says. We have had quite an issue in the past getting people, good people, to volunteer for the boards. And initially, my opinion was, if we were going to appoint Miss Oldham illegally, then, you know, I kind of agreed with Councilman Matamoros. If these candidates weren't at the meeting, then we appointed them illegally. And if we're going to do this for this person, we're going to do it for this person. Since then, legal has said we did not appoint illegally,
Right.
which I think, so I want y'all to hear this, okay? If the Board of Adjustments makes a recommendation that they want the iPad right here to be on the board. Okay, that iPad has to be at the meeting. But if we decide we want to appoint this piece of paper or this water, they don't have to be at the meeting. With the raise of hands, am I the only one that does not make sense? Gentlemen, we have an issue with the resolution. And in my opinion, getting the resolution right is the right thing to do. You know, I have heartburn, but I can take Tums for it, for the candidates to have to show up to the meeting. You know, if something happens and you're at home with the flu the night we're voting on this, I'm sorry, you know, you got to wait. I think that's, as I mentioned the other day, ludicrous.
Well, like, you know, the other option is we could change the resolution. We could have where the boards don't make recommendations. It just comes to the council, and then the council is free to appoint anybody that's here that is present and that, you know, that they can talk. And that's why I want to make sure and mention that the whole idea of boards making recommendation to council is actually fairly new, right? I mean, the city council function and the city functioned for decades and decades, and they never had appointments, you know, recommendations from the boards, right? And you know, this could be, you know, followed any certain way. Let's say a board really wants a specific person, but that person's not there. So then they don't vote, right? I mean, there's ways that you can follow it, but, you know, probably, I mean, I think, you know, either change if y'all don't want to have the requirement for the person be at the meeting, at the board meeting, y'all can change that resolution, or y'all can change it and just say, well, we don't need the boards to make recommendations. We'll just, everybody come to council and let council decide then.
I would say that the board is, the resolution is fine as it is. The spirit of it all was intended to really help the failure of the previous ordinance. And the previous ordinance was actually created, if you guys really want to know the history on this, because I was here, was because city council was too chicken to do the votes themselves, and they were trying to pass the buck back to the boards. That's actually how the real spirit of that resolution occurred.
Well, I would say,
well, hold on.
okay.
Excuse me. And so the resolution originally was drafted so that we could pass it back to the board and then use their vote as an excuse for making the unpopular votes so that people wouldn't upset their constituents, people who voted for them or people who might vote for them, and everybody just got all kinds of cold feet. Nobody just wanted to tell it like it is. I don't have a problem doing that. I've said it over and again. I don't care if you voted for me or not. We're going to be doing the right things, and we're going to be going by the resolutions that are passed by council. So then what happened was we had this resolution, and the problem was is that people then, the council started abusing that resolution. They started abusing that resolution because they started nominating citizens and residents onto boards that had never been to any board meetings, never been to any council meetings, and even after they got voted on, they didn't even show up. And they got absenteeisms, and they got removed because they were absent. I think Ms. Clark was the one here recently. So that's why we decided to go ahead and have that resolution to like button it up. Because on top of that same resolution, you had councilman over here from Ward C basically loading up the docket with all of his preferential candidates, and there was no way to objectively and fairly vote on each position for all the various boards. So that's how we got to here. The resolution isn't the problem here. And it's not, nothing's been illegal. The problem here is we have sour grapes. We have sour grapes by the councilman from Ward C because he doesn't want Landis Adams on there. So he thought he'd perpetuate the complaint by putting it on the agenda, really push it forward. Look at, Landis Adams decided to be on the Board of Adjustments. We voted him in. He brought forward his credentials. He actually probably made the strongest presentation out of any candidate I've seen in the last 6 months. And so, on any board, for any board, I should add. And so, he got voted on by the rules, by the book. Mr. Pearson, the same thing, by the rules, by the book. When Mr. Pearson was nominated, I can't remember who nominated him first. I think it was Mr. Matamoros. But if Mr. Matamoros really wanted Ms. Bachman at the time, he should have nominated her. But I think if I want to say that maybe she was nominated. Does anybody remember that part? But I think actually there wasn't a second. And so the vote on her, if we're trying to get her back on, that's not the spirit of this whole situation here. The situation here is, do we make a vote to remove these board members who were just voted on because they wanted to, and even Mr. Pearson, who's here tonight, echoed that, yes, he's happy to serve. And if we're trying to replace anybody, we want to remove them. If we want to have a council vote to remove Mr. Pearson individually, or Ms. Bachman individually, or Mr. Adams individually, then that's the motion that should be made. Let's just really call out what we're trying to do. And let's not play footsies about this. So, you know, all that said, nothing was done illegally. The ordinance is fine. If we want to remove board members, make that nomination, and we can vote on that. But I would say, in the spirit of the same resolution, we can't make a motion to add board members, multiple board members unilaterally, and I think by the same spirit of that same ordinance, we cannot remove multiple candidates unilaterally as well. So we would have to take a vote on each one. And that's a question for our city attorney, Mr. Duncan.
So one more thing I need to add about the resolution that's in place now. The terms of the resolution, when the mayor said, well, it doesn't seem to make sense or whatever. I think it's a lot easier to understand if you think about it in the idea of fairness. So if you have several people that want to be on a board, right? They should have an opportunity to be heard, right? So that's why in the resolution it says they need to be there and they get a chance to talk to the people and say, hey, I want to earn your appointment. And so if you have, 3 people that are there and they get to have their opportunity to talk to the board and say, hey, I want to earn y'all's recommendation. These are the reasons why I want to be on your board. This is what I can offer. And then someone that didn't show up and didn't talk gets appointed. Or you have a situation where, people are just appointed because the board member's like, well, I know that person, so I'm going to appoint them. Well, there may be someone they don't know that shows up at the meeting and presents themselves so well that they say, hey, that person, I don't really know that person, but I think I want to recommend that person. So it's a matter of fairness, allow everybody the opportunity. So it's not just the people you know, or it's not just your friends. It's like every person has an equal chance to come to the board and say, hey, let me tell you about myself. You may not know me, but give me a shot, right? And then the same procedure applies to city council, where you don't just recognize a name and say, hey, I know that person, I'm going to appoint them, right? Because then the perception among the public is, hey, you can't get on a board, you can't serve unless you know somebody, right? And so the system is set up that if you want to be on the board, you need to show up and you get to have your say and you get to try to convince the board or the city council, hey, you may not know me, you may not want to appoint me because you don't know me, but give me a chance. Let me talk to you and let me tell you what I'm willing to do. Let me tell you how eager I am to serve. So, I mean, idea of the resolution that was put in place is to try to give everybody a chance at least to speak up for themselves rather than appointment is made in the back room or, friends of friends or somebody you happen to know. And I'm not saying that that's, necessarily some conspiracy, but it's just human nature. If you get 5 applications and you know one person and you, oh yeah, I know that guy. I've known him for years, or I saw him at the store or whatever, and then another person, maybe you never met that person, right? Well, it's not fair to exclude that person. At least let them have an opportunity to try to convince you and have their say in front of the board or have their say in front of the city council. Give me a chance. Let me tell you why I think I would be good on this board. And so in order to do that, right, then you would have to be present to try to do that and convince the board, please make me your recommendation, or to talk to the council and say, hey, please select me. So it's really an overall idea of fairness that we're going to give everybody a chance, right? Everybody's going to have the opportunity to stand up in front of the board or stand up in front of the council and make their request and have their opportunity to sell themselves, right? So I think that that's what the and so we go back to the issue. Well, if the board just picked somebody that they knew that wasn't even there, and then the people that got up and actually showed up and actually tried to present themselves and speak up for themselves and say, hey, you may not know me, but I would like for you to appoint me, then we're not going to get people that are willing to try and show up unless they have a connection, right? Unless they have an inside connection. So I think that the resolution as it's written actually encourages people that don't regularly, that don't know people, but they want to be involved and they want to spend their time and dedicate, and they're willing to come to the meeting and spend their time to come to the meeting and try to, get that vote or get that appointment. We're encouraging people to bring new people in and to make people feel, the citizens feel like everybody has a chance. It's not just somebody if you know somebody or you have a connection, right? So I know that the resolution, as maybe initially you look at it and it's difficult to understand, but anyway, so I think that that's why the resolution is set up in that way, so that if the board doesn't give everybody the chance to come in and they don't require them to be there in person, then that person, as the penalty, then that recommendation is excluded because the board didn't follow the rule.
Thanks, sir. Yes, sir.
So we've established that nothing illegal has happened, which was the premise of the whole motion in the first place. But now, I have another question as to whether or not the motion is even legal in terms of the ordinance to remove 2 board members at the same time. That's a question I have for our city attorney.
Legal has already answered that question. He said, as the motion was made, it is illegal.
Okay, there you go. So this goes back to what I said at the last meeting. Are we going to be acting illegally out front here in the meetings? Or are we just going to do that in executive session or behind closed doors at home with our friends doing illegal activities to put, as was stated earlier, the city in legal jeopardy? So yes, not only was the vote legal.
It was legal.
Yes.
Councilman Davis said I said illegal, but
Yeah. The vote was legal. The motion is illegal.
the motion that was made is legal. It's
That's what-
legal to
that's what I'm
take
que-
legal.
that's the question
It
I
is
have.
legal to take a vote on the motion that was made due to the way the motion was made.
I didn't hear that. Can we
Yeah,
have
that's
that?
why I said, he said it wrong. He
Let's hear it.
said and that's why.
As I said earlier, if Councilman Matamoros' motion had been, I want to remove these people because they were illegally appointed, right? Then I would say, well, they were not illegally appointed, right? However, his motion was not, I want to remove them because they were illegally appointed. He just made the motion to remove them.
Correct.
Correct.
And that's not my question.
And I understand you're saying, well, the agenda says,
No, let me
okay.
finish, please.
all right.
We've been at this for a good 30 minutes here, going in circles on the very simple point. We've established that nothing illegal happened at the last meeting. My question here is now, is the motion, does the motion violate the resolution in terms of trying to remove multiple board members at one single time, regardless of the reason? That's the question I have. I'd like the city attorney to answer that, please.
Okay. I did not consider that point. The motion should be made one person, one board member at a time. That's correct.
Okay, then the motion needs to be revised legally.
No, yeah, because if you can only appoint one at a time, you can only remove one at a time. I mean, per the thing. Because when we pick, if you got 3 people to pick, he can't say I wanna promote A, B, and C, a motion to add A, B, and C on. No, he's the liaison, so he gets to do one, and then we vote, and then we go to 2, the second one, and the third one. So the same thing applies when you trying to remove somebody. So he can come up here and say, well, I want to remove the whole board. No. But if we want to, if we want to change the rule, we just you take the recommendation out of the board and just leave it to the council. And they come in. It's just like an application. When you hiring somebody, you don't just put in an application and don't show up to the interview, and then I'm gonna pick this one. I mean, that's what was happening. And then so now they're coming up and talking. That's the way it should be, because the board probably feels disrespected in the first place when they make a recommendation, and then it comes up here, and then we pick something else. I mean, that's not the first time that didn't happen, but so that's where that's where all the confusion coming from. Stop the confusion, because ultimately the buck stops here. So let's just bring them here and let them come up to tell us why they should be on that board, and we pick them. I mean, that cut out the board feeling disrespected when they make a recommendation and we don't go by it, because it's ultimately up to us up to here.
Council, any other questions or comments?
Yes, Mayor, so at this point, we have an illegal motion, and it needs to be revised. If we're going to try to vote on Mr. Pearson and Mr. Adams, it needs to be done individually. And so I ask that you instruct the council to revise the motion so that it is a legal motion. Or, for that matter, just table it.
Thank you, Jeff. Council, any other questions or comments?
Are we asking them to withdraw? Would they consider?
Before we take a vote?
Okay.
You want to take a vote on an illegal motion?
I said before I call the vote, I will make that comment. Council, any other questions or comments?
I have a question.
Go ahead.
What's the penalty for violating a city ordinance, city attorney, Mr. Duncan?
It depends on the ordinance. Some ordinances, I mean, we have lots of city ordinances.
So this particular ordinance, can we just flaunt it? And for that matter, other ordinances, can we just flaunt them? I just want to know, because I want to know, what can we get away with, right? That's what we're really trying to find out at this moment. What can we get away with? What can George get away with? What can Jerry get away with? What can Winston get away with? What could Jarvis get away with? I'm not going to get away with anything because everybody's watching what I do. So I'm just curious, what's the penalty if we take a vote on an illegal motion?
It would be void.
Boom. Thank you, sir.
Any other questions or comments, gentlemen? Hearing none. Councilman Matamoros, hearing what's been said, do you want to amend your motion?
So, to do it proper, the person who seconded, because that's when the motion went up for a vote, would have to withdraw his motion. But yes, I will amend my motion.
Okay, Councilman Rosso, will you withdraw your second?
Thank you, sir. So I will withdraw my motion, and I will make a motion to table.
I'll second.
We have a motion to table by Councilman Matamoros, second by Jeff Pena.
Call the question.
I hope we don't need any more discussion on this.
I said I called the question to help you out.
You called the vote?
Yes, sir.
Okay. With that being said, I'll call the vote. All those in favor to table state aye. Aye. All opposed state nay. Motion carries unanimously.
Thank you.
Agenda item 4H, discussion and possible action regarding city boards, meeting times, and meeting facilities. Councilman Pena.
Yes, I asked for this particular item to be on the agenda only because I had attended the first meeting for the civil service.
Jeff, I'm going to offer you the same as I offered.
What would you like?
Councilman Matamoros, I would like for you to read the agenda item, and then we'll take a motion, then we'll have discussion.
Okay. I'm not a big fan of that particular format, only because...
That's the way we do every other agenda item we go through.
That's actually not true, and I have the video recordings to prove that, because that was something that I actually prepared at one point for the council meetings. But, that said, all right, what do you want me to read? A discussion and possible action regarding city boards, meeting times, and meeting facilities. Does that help? And the motion?
No, you want to give us a little bit of a summary, like city council will discuss and consider possible action regarding the meeting times?
It's in the memo, but I'm happy to read the memo.
Well, that's what I'm asking for you to read.
Well, you're facilitating the meeting, I figured you might, but that's okay, I know how to read. And give me 1 second to get to that page.
Not the first agenda item you've put on the
That's
agenda
right.
either.
Here we go, let me get it on here, if I could just find it in this
Under
three-ring
tab
binder.
4H.
Yeah, well, I got city council agenda item #nothing on the 4G, so give me a second. There was nothing on it, so bear with me as I try to get some of this here. Give me a second. No, it's not reading comprehension, that is your problem, not mine, but thanks for the dig. Thank you, Ms. Kelly. Yeah, the background on this here. City Council has oversight authority regarding the organization and operation of city boards and commissions, including meeting schedules and the designation of meeting locations. Periodic review of meeting times and facilities may be necessary to ensure accessibility, efficiency, compliance with Texas Open Meetings Act, and effective public participation. And that's really where the rub of it all is. So that's my motion. You know, the motion here is to require the various city boards to, as a matter of transparency, because that's what was really asked for the civil service, and I was really glad to see them work together so easily and agree so simply. Yeah, we should probably have it where it's not at 5 o'clock and no councilman can be there, or for that matter, most working
Jeff,
individuals.
Is this the motion?
The motion...
You started the motion and went off to left field.
The motion, good grief. The motion is to create or designate or require, you choose the verb you want, that all city boards, except for the beautification board and the senior citizen board, be held in city council chambers, so that the public can be able to witness it, whether they are here or on the live webcast. We have that for all the boards except for the Charter Committee and Main Street, and the historical. And I want to make sure that those, because they are going to be moving forward with a lot of big spending items, I want to make sure that that's all transparent. So that's the motion, that those boards are required to be in council chambers for their meetings and not sequestered in some other space.
All right, council, we have a motion on the floor to require all boards to hold their meetings in city council chambers.
Except for
Except for,
the beautification board and the senior citizens board.
except for the beautification and senior citizen. Council, is there a second?
Well, I'm going to second for discussion, so we can have a discussion.
All right, we have a motion by Jeff and second by Councilman Davis. Any questions or comments?
Yes.
Go ahead.
So as I was stating here, the civil service did a great job in planning and scheduling their next meeting. The first one wasn't well thought out, I don't think, and I'm not sure how that was put together, but it was at 5 p.m., so we asked for them to put it at 6 p.m. And in short order, within 5 minutes, they figured out, okay, we're going to do it at 6 p.m., and then we're going to do it at a certain time of the month that doesn't conflict with another board. And they did that. Great, because we need more council participation and public participation at the meetings, and that's what that helps to serve, or provide, I should say, and really the transparency of it all. And that's really the spirit of this whole agenda request, is especially for the boards that are being given the responsibility of spending tens, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars, and sometimes maybe even millions, like the EDC board, and for that matter, the TERS board, be required to have their meetings here and in front of that camera. And that camera. And that's the reason why I asked for that, because as it stands now, the civil service can have a meeting at 3 o'clock. Who's going to make it? Maybe the only person that might be able to make it would be Winston, because he's retired. But that's not fair to the rest of council to be there. We need to all be able to be there. And so I was really grateful that they moved it to 6 p.m. And this has been something that I've been trying to get on the agenda for the city, to operate with more transparency and accountability, so that when residents say, oh yeah, there's our bad actor, look what he said during that meeting, or hey, did you see what they just passed? You have greater transparency, and that's all I'm asking for.
Any other questions or comments?
Oh, yes, sir.
Go ahead, Councilman.
All right. Yes, I just wanted a little discussion on that, but thank you for that clarification. I do agree that the civil servants, we need to try to, get it in a time frame where people can attend, especially us, because it's new. It's new, and we all need to. And then I know a lot of the citizens, they would like to, find out, well, what did we just vote for? What is going on? What is all this talk? And it's a lot of talk that a lot of people don't know. Well, it's good to have it here on camera so they could tune in and watch it. And it would be good to have it, at 6 o'clock. It's hard, and y'all being liaisons on boards, y'all know that it's hard because we work. when they have 5 o'clock meetings. That's hard, you know. I didn't miss a couple of meetings over there with the with the board that I was on, and I was over there the other day, and you know, we was talking. I think they was talking about, you know, something. I mean, you know, coming out. How can we get the people more involved? How can, you know? And a lot of people ask, what's going on here? Well, what are y'all doing here? What's going on with the development? Why ain't no? Well, if they're not able to make it to the meetings, it's always a plus that they can watch it at home and get educated. But I was looking at Main Street board, and I was like, well, how many people is on that board? I mean, because we only got, you know, this many chairs. How many people you got on your board? 9. So now I'm looking like, okay, well, how they gonna have a meeting in here with 9 board members? So I'm trying to, hold on. I'm trying to figure, like, well, how they gonna have a meeting in here with 9 board members and they ain't got that many chairs? So, but still, maybe we can require that they set up a camera. Maybe a camera can be put. If the boards can't be moved, if they don't want to have it in here and it's not enough room, there's not enough board members, they have to sit over there. That still don't add up. But maybe, you know, all boards that he just required to come here, if he can't come here, they should be televised. I mean, you know, put on just the YouTube just like the rest of them, because people, it's transparency, and if people will get informed, not just at the council meeting, because at the council meeting, we don't hardly get informed on EDC or something. So when people asking us out in the streets, hey, well, what's going on with this? What they building over there? Oh, shoot, I don't know. I mean, that's kind of embarrassing, you know, when stuff like that happens, and us as council don't know, you know. So it's just better for everybody if we could come to a point to where all of this is just like council, just like the civil service, P&Z in here. You know, it's a couple other boards in here, but them are important things that people need to know. If they can't get out and they can't make it, they can at least watch it. So I think that's a good idea. This motion would have to be modified, but because I think it's saying for everybody to come here. I think it's a good idea, but it's not enough room, I don't think, but everybody should be televised.
Councilman Davis, it took 20 minutes just to read this motion.
30, actually.
I mean,
It's 30.
okay, but
And you want to modify it?
But if it's not 9 chairs in here, it's not 10 chairs in here. I mean it is, but they ain't got microphones or.
Mayor, if I may, we've had joint meetings with the council and the EDC, and we just grouped up here, but there's no problem. We got 6 chairs right here. We can usually put 2, and those cameras facing this way can capture that. I mean, Mr. Cohen, what's the camera capabilities to capture those individuals on that side? 360. The real issue, and I'll tell you this.
Well, you got to read the mic, though.
Yeah, we get mics over there. We can get mics over there. That's how we did it before. I sat over there before.
9, 10 mics?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, actually, when the EDC was brought in, before I was on council, we sat over there. But let me just say this. The real purpose, originally, the EDC used to meet on the 2nd floor of the old City Hall downtown, and the problem with that is that we had some residents, some developers, get angry and stand up and get in people's faces. You remember that, Jerry? Yeah. And so that's why we moved here, so that there would be this boundary, a nice, healthy boundary. And it's nice when we have our police officers here, when people get really out of hand. And so what's really good is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 people that are here right now in the audience. For those at home, we would be like sardines in any other space. And for that matter, the additional cost for trying to get video and audio set up. This place is already done. As Mr. Cohen said, 360 degrees, plenty of room for residents to participate, and we don't have to try to reinvent the wheel for getting more transparency on YouTube.
The question I have,
Yes, sir?
what boards do not currently use council chambers, other than the beautification and senior citizens?
Main Street.
Looks like the Charter Review Committee also.
And Charter.
Okay, so this technically would affect Charter and Main Street.
Mm-hmm.
So we would have to move a couple mics over here, you know, assuming this passes, whenever the Main Street's here, because being that it's recorded, they need to speak in the mic. Yeah.
How difficult would it be to put microphones
It's on a stand.
like these?
Depending if you want citizens' comments, if we wanted to add,
If we have 2 more of the microphones that you have in your hand right now,
we could get more. I'd
Yeah.
have to get another repeater, but yeah, I could theoretically add 10 more if we had
Oh, wow.
to.
there you go. With 1 repeater?
No, it'd be 2 per repeater,
So we'd probably only need 1 repeater, 1 more repeater to get 2 folks.
roughly.
That's cool.
Council, any other questions or comments on this item?
Just thank you, Mayor, for the consideration.
I'd like to know if any one of y'all got them?
I'm
I mean,
seeing
what
head
does that,
shaking
what does
no.
that sound like? I mean, that just don't make sense, or it just?
Winston, do you think the
What
seniors
about the, I
would
mean,
be
she
good
back
here?
there?
No, you can't fit the seniors in here.
No,
Why not?
no, it's a lot of seniors.
Fit the seniors in here for their meeting.
Their meeting's at 12. The board meeting. You can fit in here. Yeah.
Yeah.
The way that
I would give the seniors the option.
You would?
Yep.
Well, they're doing a lot of exciting things.
Well, I would give them the option. If they want to put it out on Facebook, what they're doing, then I would say do it. If
Well,
they
we
didn't
already-
want to,
Jerry,
What do you say, Winston? I'm sorry.
what I say, right after all the activities that we do, we just go right into the meeting. You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah,
And we just sit at one table and it's 7 of us.
Right.
yeah.
If we did it the other way, we'd have to shut it down over there, close everything up, and then come over here.
Yeah,
Old people don't like all that kind of
no,
rigmarole.
no, that wouldn't be good.
Well, that's
Would you
why,
like
that's
to-
why I didn't include them in the first place, because I remember how that worked.
Councilman Matamoros, you got anything to add to this conversation?
After that, the Main Street is here, so we'll hear her opinion. I guess not.
Come let us know what you think about this.
So on behalf of, oh, sorry, I'll let you finish.
It is more comfortable because the chair's over there. You can't roll around.
The only thing I did want to emphasize is the purpose of moving the Main Street Board meeting to the Nat Hickey Education Center was because it was purposely intended for us to be in the downtown area. It was more of an inspiration decision that we made. We felt being down there is, better for the board. And this is truly for inspiration purposes. However, it's just the right thing to do for them, if that matters for council to consider. I wanted to point it out.
No, We want your input because it affects your board.
The other thing I was possibly thinking is maybe doing a Facebook Live or coordinating with Toby to see what are other ways that we can have that meeting be more public. But for sure be comfortable as well and just have the Main Street Board meeting where we are intended to focus on.
I feel like the spirit of this is to get it more public.
That's all.
Yeah.
So I feel like, Toby, if there's a way we can coordinate with them to get it to where we can broadcast live over there, and then I kind of agree with her argument about having it downtown.
That it's inspiring, that they're more inspired to be downtown, to make better decisions because they're inspired. Is that the argument?
I mean,
They're
it's just-
inspired to be downtown where they're trying to promote.
They're trying to promote.
I'm just over here trying to say, there's more participation, it's a one-stop shop, there's no confusion. I mean, it's already like, first of all, where does the beautification board meet? I don't know. I've never been told. Where does the senior board meet? I didn't know until I was liaison. Where does Main Street meet? The Nat Hickey Library, or what was it again?
The Nat Hickey Education
Yeah, the
Center.
Education Center.
So it's the
So it's like-
expansion space of the museum.
And then where does everybody else meet? Here. I don't know why we don't want to just make it all uniform.
I mean, that's a good argument, but I understand where she was coming from.
I know I made it very generic by saying inspiration.
Yeah, no, it's just,
But it's just, for the board to work on projects downtown.
if we're working on
That any
projects.
time we have to work on something after the meeting or future projects, or we ever have to do walkthroughs downtown, we're already in a place where it leads us to that. That's what I meant by the inspiration.
Yeah, so that's what I was thinking, like, so when you go into the meeting, you're driving down and that's just, you're seeing it, you're seeing it.
seeing it,
And if
correct.
y'all in the meeting, and then you need to, so, hey, look, come outside, we're gonna go outside. This is right here. Okay, vision it. I mean, but you gotta step y'all gotta step your mind game up, but, to broad the meeting like that, but you can just step outside and you can go walk. Hey, we got this project over here. This is what it's. You can be
Correct.
right there with it. I understand that, but like I said, need to be posted
Yeah,
for the
I-
residents to understand. I mean, to hear what's going on.
I'll also push back on this particular point, on this particular argument. How many walkthroughs have there been downtown since you've been on as the director?
We have not done any walkthroughs since I
hasn't been
came
any?
in as with the
Right.
Main Street coordinator role.
Correct.
However, we did put it in our annual goal for this year. We're even going to have a downtown walkthrough in March. And this is to emphasize people in the community to come and look at their own downtown area.
Well, I will say this, is that, and again, I'm just trying to figure out how do we make a really strong argument for one way or the other, right? If there's a strong argument, one way or the other, let's go with that. Let's go with the most impactful, most efficient, most effective. If we're saying, hey, we want to make sure we have these meetings downtown because we want to make sure that everybody gets to come outside, just found out none has been done in the time that Ms. Lopez has been here. But even when she wasn't, and it was both Mr., what was his name, Wade, and then before him, Ms. Sildas, there was only one walkthrough in the last 3 years. And then I'm thinking, okay, well, maybe the argument is we're going to have more. Well, it sounds like we're only going to have one coming up in March. Now, I'm not trying to be facetious, and I'm not trying to be cute or rude. I'm just trying to be as practical as we possibly can be here. If we're really not doing all these walkthroughs, why are we going to go extend ourselves to try to create a audiovisual platform, and for that matter, a room that's a lot more claustrophobic than this space, that affords the public a better experience, more transparency, and for that matter, the board members themselves have these monitors to also look at all the audiovisual. And so it makes no sense to try to recreate the wheel, spend all that money over in downtown, when the argument that was made the most emphatically about, well, it's good to be there on site, when no usage of being on site is really even ever been done and really not planned all that much. And in fact, the one walkthrough that was done was planned not even as a meeting, but as a deliberate or explicit walkthrough to look at the alleys and the EDC buildings. So I just want to make sure I push back on that so that everybody's informed on how much that actually does happen, if that's the strongest argument or the most counterpoint that we're going to be considering as to why not to move it from here. It makes more all the sense still that it should be here. That's all I have, Mayor.
Chief Howell, did you have something you wanted to add?
I did just want to add that, when Maria had taken over, the meetings were done at City Hall at that time, and one of the things is that she did want to move it downtown. At the time, there wasn't anywhere really set up downtown, because Wade's area to the side is where he puts the special exhibits. And so until the expansion center was done, then at that time, so she's only had 2 meetings down there in the expansion center. And so that was just something that, she had kind of put a focus on to, again, have the board literally see every month what it is that we're working on and what it is we're going towards. So I do understand what you're saying, but like I said, that space hasn't been available that long, so she's only been able to have 2 meetings down there so far.
Thank you, Chief. All right, council, any other questions or comments on this? Hearing none, I'm going to call the vote. All those in favor, state aye.
Aye.
All opposed, state nay.
Nay.
Nay. Motion fails.
I'll make a second motion.
1 to 4.
I'll make a second motion. That the Main Street be required to have live audiovisual during their meetings. Main Street and historical, both.
I don't think we can make that motion since it's not on the agenda.
It's germane to what I'm talking about, Jerry, don't be cute.
I'm not, Jeff, we don't have to make a motion, but we can.
Motion's on the floor.
We can. Thank you, Duncan. While he's thinking, we can direct the city manager to get that taken care of.
So the agenda item says discussion and possible action regarding city board meeting times and meeting facilities.
That makes sense. I didn't say it had to be right here. That just got voted down. I'm just voting for more transparency. You guys want to roadblock that? That's on you guys. Just everybody gets to see it on video. Who's voting what? Thank God. Hallelujah. And by the way, these videos and audios got set up because Councilman Mariah and myself were the ones that pushed it. Thank you. For more transparency.
Legal, do you have an answer?
The question is, can he make the motion to require the audiovisual for the 2 boards? I think that could loosely fall under facilities. I mean, facilities is not necessarily he didn't say location. So I would say that he could be permitted to make that motion to require the 2 boards to have those capabilities at the meeting included as facilities.
All right, so Jeff has made a motion to require audiovisual at the meetings downtown. Is there a second?
Wait, it was a change. It was
the meetings for Main Street and historical commissions.
For the Main Street and Historical Commission.
Hold on, was it the time too? Sorry.
Oh, yeah, well, I'll say at the designated time of 6 p.m. because this 5:30 time and 5 o'clock times are just killing everybody. No.
Okay.
So should I revise my motion?
Please clarify your motion.
So the motion is to have audio-visual be placed at the meeting for Main Street and Historical, as well as ensuring that it's at 6 PM, like all the other boards that are actually publicly broadcasted, so that everybody can attend.
Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Councilman Davis. Any questions or comments, gentlemen?
Just a last comment, I used to be the liaison for Main Street, and one of the reasons why I couldn't make those meetings was because of the time.
That's why I stopped being the liaison of it. I'll call the vote. All those in favor state aye. Aye. All opposed state nay. Motion carries unanimously.
Thank you.
That brings us
It's Ms. Kelly's.
to work session. Starting off, Ward A, Jeff.
My turn.
Yeah, I want to, as always, thank everybody that came out and spoke out. Some folks spoke forcefully, and some folks spoke untruthfully. And I think we know who those are, and I'll be sure to help enlighten folks on the truths and the fallacies on my social media podcast. I also want to make mention here that I'm really concerned about this 4th Street and Pecan. I mean, it really doesn't take a rocket scientist to fix this problem in a very layman, very simple way, and I'm just kind of curious. You know, I wasn't really in favor of sending it off to some engineer to over-engineer it and overthink it, but that's where we're at, and I'm just kind of curious where we are with that waste of money when the solution could have been easily we put a stop sign or some speed humps over there. Do we have an update on that by chance?
Yes, I was going to add
From
that
Public
as
Works?
part of my update.
Yeah.
For city manager. We did receive the traffic study back last Thursday afternoon. It will be on your next agenda for February 5th, I believe it is, for council consideration. And the recommendation was to add a 4-way stop.
Okay.
And the only reason that it went to the engineers is it's required by the transportation code. So it's, we can't just put up stop signs and speed bumps wherever we want. I'd love to be able to do that, to be honest, but unfortunately we can't. There's a certain process that it has to go through. And Mr. Cool was explaining that process. And so and I know it takes a while, and that's just the unfortunate, part of government sometimes, but yeah, so since we did receive that back, we didn't receive it back in enough time for it to be on this agenda, unfortunately.
Well, I know we've done speed humps in the parks, and so I'm just curious, did we run it up the flagpole with an engineering firm to do all that? I don't think we did.
No,
So-
it's different when you're talking about like there at FMP as compared to, the streets.
So if it's
So
a-
your residential roadways, everything's, like I said, laid out in transportation code.
So any roadways that front or are going through a park are treated differently?
I believe probably all of ours. I would believe probably all of ours would be.
Yeah, okay. Thank you on that. I wanted to make sure I got that update. I got my notes on my phone, and full disclosure, no one's been texting me. Thank you, everybody. The lights at City Hall, I can tell you down in Second Street, they need to be on, because it is darker than madness on Second Street and on Cherry Street. And for all the residents on Cherry Street and on First Street and even Second Street, and for those that live downtown, the lighting is so much better to have. And the lighting has always been on. And unfortunately, we have a resident coming up here with hyperbole and falsehoods saying they're on 24/7, 7 days a week. That's not true. They're all turned on through a photo sensor, just the same way all of the other lights that are on the street are. So I can tell you that the light that's in this parking lot was put on that, on this parking lot here, because after every city council meeting, it was also dark as madness. And people felt very unsafe to be speaking out there. Now we actually have it. And so I just want to make sure that it's heard loud and clear that the lights in City Hall should stay on, because I think it also sends the spirit of the message that we're not shutting down downtown. So there's, that's my first message. The other thing is, I'm still very serious about how we handle our meetings and cell phones in a meeting, and I really would like to have our city council do the same thing as the county courthouses here, district courthouses, federal courthouses. You walk in and you put your phone in a basket. It's highly disrespectful, and I think it actually may violate open meetings laws, and I'm just curious if in fact it does, if a councilman is texting another councilman or another resident during the meetings. I'd like an answer officially from our city attorney, Mr. Duncan.
Okay, so it is a violation of open meetings for council members during the council meeting to share messages through text message, email, whatever, with other council members or with members of the public, because all deliberations and discussions are required to be made public. So if a citizen has a point to make or a discussion point, then that's why we have the citizen comment. They come in and make their points publicly in front of everybody. So so yes, those communications through your cell phone with people in the public or with other council members during the meeting would violate the Open Meetings Act.
Thank you. Can we put that on the agenda for the next meeting as a resolution? Additionally, I also want to thank everybody that came out for the Martin Luther King festivities this weekend here, the parade. There was a lot of really positive feedback. I want to thank our police officers for the city of Freeport, and also all the neighboring first responders that were helping out with the traffic. It was a great event. I'm glad it was put on. It was a beautiful day. I don't know who ordered the beautiful weather, but I know last year it was ice cold. And as I learned at the Martin Luther King Gala on Saturday, that it all started here in Freeport, and that's why we have that parade in Freeport. And I would like to recommend that we have not only a table at the gala, but we also have a official city float for our councilmen. And for that matter, our city manager and our senior staff, because I think it's important that we're all seen by the public that we serve. And so I would like to put that on the agenda, that for whatever all the future parades that we're planning on, I know we had a Mardi Gras parade, and I don't know what other parades we're going to have, but I hope the Mardi Gras one comes back, but that all the parades that we have a presence, so that we might actually even be able to participate in other neighboring cities' parades as well, and have our official float. Because I know when Surfside has their parades for St. Patrick's, there's a lot of other municipalities that have floats and presence, and it would be good for us to share in that positive outreach. And I also want to send out a big kudos to the dispatch department here for the police department. There have been several occurrences around town and downtown especially, and without fail, they have responded and sent our officers to help address the various issues, whether that's been illegal drugs, paraphernalia being planted and distributed in the downtown areas, and or suspicious individuals hiding in the shadows by the museum and the other downtown buildings. in the shadows of those spaces. So again, more reason why we need more light, but big kudos for their very sensitive and good bedside manner, you might say, as they say in the medical field. The rapport that we have from the police department with our citizens, at least from what I've seen and what I've experienced, has been very positive, and I just want to commend them and also encourage them to continue to do so. Thank you.
Ward B, Councilman Davis.
All right, good evening. Good evening. Thank you all for coming out, participating. Once again, yeah, we know we're talking about the stop signs and stuff, and you know, I said it last week too. The same thing what Chief said. You can't just go up and throw up stop signs like that. I work. I do the signs and for the county and stuff. So it's a process, and it has to go through that process, and you just can't. You just can't do it. It's unfortunate sometimes, it takes a long time sometimes, and sometimes they get it done quick, but that's just a process we have to go through. So, I mean, we're not ignoring the situation. We have put signs out and, try to raise the awareness until this is not this is a temporary fix. I mean, just to address the situation that's happening, just to let the citizens know we do hear you, but we're about to get the proper go ahead to where we can make a decision on it. So, second of all, Dr. Kelly left. Who in charge of fire hydrants?
Veolia is responsible for maintenance on those.
Who in charge to replace fire hydrants?
Chief Motley, could you come up here for a second?
That would go back to Veolia making recommendations or passing the replacement costs back to the city.
And so the city is in charge. I mean, will pay for the replacement of the fire hydrant.
Yes, that would go through Veolia.
Can you explain to us the process real quick?
The way I understood it, past project managers would say this needs to be replaced, go replace it, and then they would see it back through the costs that you pay each month on the service from Veolia. I forgot what that's, M&O or something like that. I don't know what account that's through, so.
Okay. So we need to get in touch with Veolia, because I know we have a fire hydrant on the south side over here that, it's been like that for over a year going on. Now, Veolia did come out and fix it because it was leaking, and it had been leaking in the ditch for a while. Veolia came out there and they fixed it. They stopped the leak, and they said that the fire hydrant was no good. So they told the street department. That was when, I guess, when Rudy was here. So they said that the fire hydrant needs to be replaced.
Councilman Davis, all I can tell you is when we find them, we report them to Veolia for correction or for repair.
Okay,
we do that from our lieutenants.
Now we go to you then. Thank you.
Okay.
That's what we need to know.
I can't answer anything past that after that.
So now we go to you. Can you get somebody to see who in charge of replacing this, or tell somebody they need to replace this fire hydrant over there? I guess it would be 608 South Avenue F. That's not where the fire hydrant is across the street for that. It's in the ditch.
Did you say F as in Foxtrot?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that one. That word there. You could have said fish or something. No. All right. Yeah, I'm talking to a Marine, I guess. Reason being, it was a fire down there. I guess the fire department know that, a house burnt up over there, and that fire hydrant is on that road. And so I guess maybe they got water from the other fire hydrant over there. And
I believe that's the one Chief Howell already sent over to Veolia to have it replaced. But in addition to that, as part of the contract amendments, there will be a schedule in there to exercise all of our hydrants to make sure that they are operating as required.
Yes, the night of the fire, the patrol sergeant had actually reported to us about the situation with the hydrant, and so then I had taken that information and already reported it to Mr. Dawson, and included Chief Motley and Dr. Kelly in on that, so that way they would already know it was reported. So as soon as it was reported, we reported it for it as well. And so he responded back and said they were going to get that addressed.
okay, thank you. Because that was a whole issue that, you know, what if one of these houses catch on fire? Where they gonna get water from? You know, and that fire hydrant had been out a while, and we had turned it in, and it was communicated to, the street department was out there and everybody, so everybody knew that that fire hydrant was out way back. Not y'all. I would know, Rudy and his crew, Viola was all out there. I went there. I met them all out there.
Yeah, I was about to say, at the end of the day, it's Veolia.
Yes,
And
yes.
so, I mean, when like Rudy received the information, then he would have gotten with Veolia.
So maybe he didn't get with Viola or whatever. Whichever one, both of them.
But yeah, if they came out there, then Rudy
somebody-
had gotten with them. But I mean, as far as the repair taking place,
The replacement,
Yeah.
the repair taking it. So who has to make that call? Freeport or Viola?
so it's going to ultimately depend on if they're making an actual repair or if it's a replacement.
Replacement.
And so then they would turn around and give that information to us that this
Yeah.
would be the replacement cost. Would y'all like to go ahead and move forward on it?
Yeah. So they said it need to be replaced. We already repaired it, but it don't work no more.
I'll
That
follow
was-
up on
that
that
was
email with
when-
Mr. Dawson to
When
say.
I was out there, they was all out there, everybody.
So that
And
way
they
he can
felt
be
they
aware of
already
that.
established that it was leaking. They stopped the leak, and they said, this needs to be replaced. And it's never been replaced. And now we had a fire over there,
Right.
you know, so.
So yes, I'll follow up on that email with
Thank
Mr.
you.
Dawson.
But you already did though, right?
Well, I
mean,
did the first time, but I'll
yeah.
follow up with the information that you
Oh,
just
okay.
gave me.
Yeah, thank you,
Okay.
yeah, because it's been addressed. All right. What I had, fire hydrant. Who else I had? I forgot what else I had. But just thank the city for participating in, you know, the Martin Luther King celebrations, and I did have one. I want to see if we can get on the agenda the Brazosport seniors prom. There was I want to see if we can put that on the agenda to be able to waive the fee at the River Place, so we can donate the river, that they can use the River Place to have the prom this year coming up in May. They was having an issue. They had reserved it way back, but then the rule changed, and then now, per the rule, they have to pay. But you know, the prom doesn't have they have a little budget that they fundraise for. It's not funded by the school per se, and then so they didn't have the the funds to account for what the cost is for the River Place. But they had already made plans, you know, previously ahead of time to use that, and it was usually be approved. So I want to see if we can bring that to council and see if we can go over.
As a council member, you have the ability to use your one time per year to sponsor an event that would be free for the participants, if you want to use your one time.
What's the date on that event?
My daughter's have an engagement thing now, so mine's already taken up.
I already used mine as an employee for the Martin Luther King celebration yesterday, so I don't have one.
So see, we need to go back and look through that rule. We need to go back and look through that, that rule that we passed. I mean, I don't think we looked it over good, so. But I'm gonna go back over that too. And make some changes in there if everybody agrees with it. Because we're running into problems now with these, you know, that stuff used to be donated by the city. You know, we went to the celebration the other day, and that was donated by the college. Where we went, you know, they didn't pay a fee for that either. You know, that donated by college, and that usually happens here in Freeport. But when we changed the rule, now it's a fee. So we need to look at that rule again. That's all I got.
All right. Ward C, Councilman Matamoros.
Thank you, Mayor. So, first thing I'd like to bring up is, we've had a couple of violations from TCEQ about the wastewater lift station on the Slaughter Road side due to loss of power. So, to prevent some more violations, we probably need to look at adding another generator to prevent those. So that's item number one, if we can maybe look at that.
Excuse me, Councilman, would you say that name, was it Slaughter?
Slaughter Road, yes.
It's over by the golf course.
So, okay. So here's my response to the asinine statement that's on social media stating purely false statements. I at no time have sided with any side against the city in a $1 million lawsuit.
Wrong.
I have given a statement to the attorney representing the city in that lawsuit. If and when it goes to trial, my testimony will reflect accordingly. So any person who states otherwise is a liar. I find it hilarious that a thief of public funds, in particular hotel occupancy taxes,
nice slander
makes
move.
these
Nice slander.
accusations.
Careful.
It is a shame that we have to spend extra city resources to defend these lawsuits. And anyone who has any questions can come and speak to me, and I will let you know within legal boundaries what I have done.
Just gotta show up
Thank
to the
you.
meetings.
Thank you, Councilman. Ward D, Councilman Rosso.
Yeah, I'm like everyone else. I appreciate everyone coming out to the council meeting, even those that's online. Appreciate you. I want to warn everyone, Monday, plants, pipes, and pits, we're supposed to be freezing Monday, so take in consideration that that's serious. It's very serious. I want to give a shout out to everyone at the city that helped. That Martin Luther King celebration has been around 40 years. We celebrated 40 years this past, matter of fact, we flew in one of the bishops that started it 40 years ago. There are so many people. If you've never been to that celebration, we call it a festival. If you've never been to the festival, There are vendors, there's a band, there's music. Back 20, 30 years ago, we used to have a lot of bands in it. This year, we had a band from Pearland and the ROTC. To have that many people come to our town, our city, in droves. I mean, that park was just full of people. And it went on from 11 o'clock to 3 o'clock. And like I said, I want to thank all the city employees. They did an awesome job of cleaning up after we finish, helping us while we did the festival, gave out trophies. That parade is bragged on. The vendors, the food, the fish, the sausage on a stick, just like a regular festival. This year we added a recycle, and probably we'll have a recycle every year. Paper, cans, small items, everything, just a regular recycle. We had a sorority to come, most of them were from Houston, came down to do it. Takes a lot of coordination to put over the gospel choir on that Thursday. On that Friday, we had a preaching. That Saturday, we had a banquet. The city of Freeport, thank God, they had 2 tables. And we always have really, really good speakers. So I felt good to be a part of that festival. The weather cooperated. It was a beautiful day. And the last 2 years, it's been ice. Too cold, 30 degrees or below. So that's why we had to cancel the parade and cancel the festival in the pavilion. That's all I got.
Thank you, Councilman. You know, one nice thing about going last is a lot of times these guys hit the subjects that I was going to talk about, so I get to skip over and make mine a lot shorter. First of all, I would like to thank everybody for coming out, those that are watching at home, and especially those that come speak up at the beginning of the council meetings. I've said it before, that it really does mean a lot to us, and we do listen. Mr. Cool has been up here talking for months now about this particular intersection, and it looks like finally we might get some relief on there. And understand, if he wouldn't have been coming up here talking about it, then chances are nothing would have gotten done. So keep that in mind whenever you're sitting there thinking, should I or should I not? Come do it. Come tell us. I was not able to make the parade and the festivities on Monday at the MLK celebration. Unfortunately, I got to do this thing called work. I was, however, able to attend the banquet Saturday night. And it was an amazing banquet. The speaker was spot on. But I was honored to be able to read a proclamation for the 40th anniversary of the MLK. And for those of y'all that know me, know I do not like to speak in public. But that one was one that, like I say, it was an honor to do, and it was one that I wasn't going to turn down. And it was nice to be able to represent the city of Freeport in a manner such. The cold weather, I think Councilman Rosso said Monday, but Sunday, I think it might get cold as well. So if you have those precious plants and pets and what have you, go ahead and bring them in a little bit early. You're saying Saturday? Yeah. Just be prepared. Watch the weather, watch the news, and let's protect what we can. So, Dr. Kelly, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Thank you, sir. Based on the conversation earlier, I just want to remind everybody that the Civil Service Commission is meeting here tomorrow at 6 o'clock. I thoroughly enjoyed going to the Martin Luther King celebration dinner. That was amazing. The speaker was awesome. I did go to the parade on Monday. I was mistakenly thinking that it was just in downtown. So when I got there and realized that it was all of 2nd Street, it was about 10:30, so I just started walking. And I talked to tons of people along the route, met some business owners, got to tour a place under construction downtown, got to meet some of our workers and the police volunteers that were from other cities. I also talked to the ladies that were doing the recycling event and gave them my card because we're thinking about doing more for the city in recycling. It was really a lot of fun. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. All right, before we go into executive session, one of the items is personnel discussion and possible action regarding personnel matters involving Assistant City Manager Chief Jennifer Howe, including potential conflicts of interest arising from her dual role. Ms. Howe, would you like to have this in open or closed session? Open session. All right, then we're going to proceed with that right now. Councilman Pena.
How are we doing this? Are we having Ms. Howe come forward, or are we just going to deliberate on this?
She'll make her way up here.
Okay, I'll wait. So I want to make sure that everybody understands why I put this on the agenda, but before we proceed, I want to make sure also that everybody also understands, from the public and for that matter, council, what the proper procedure is in what we're about to discuss. And my question for our city attorney is for some clarification on this. I know that the council cannot hire and fire city staff. The only positions that we have that authority for removal is the city manager, and for that matter, the police chief. But as it relates to the assistant city manager, we do not. Is that correct? Can you clarify that?
Yep, that's correct.
So, that said, the intention of this discussion is to give the city manager guidance on what the will of the council is for the management of the city to avoid any conflicts of interest that would put the city in a legally perilous position, and for that matter, a constitutional crisis, for lack of a better phrase, but in simple terms, a conflict of interest. And so I want to make sure that everybody understands that this discussion here, I guess, is going to be a public discussion. I think normally what happens is council will have a discussion about an employee in executive session, and everybody has to step out. And if the employee will be in the room when they're asked to be brought in, and so then we'll discuss the issue at hand, and then we'll give our recommendation to the city manager, and then the city manager will take the direction from council and go about it that way. And so what happens is the city manager will usually abide by the will of the council. If not, they get fired at the very next meeting. Just kidding, Miss Kelly. Don't want to make you nervous. I'm just saying, though, but that's typically, you know, it's top down. It's the public, council, city manager, police chief, city attorney. Actually, that's the other one that we also vote on. And then the rest of the staff. And the direction comes downward. The will of the people is heard and facilitated, as was exemplified by Mr. Cool on the 4th and Pecan Street situation. And so here we have, and make no mistake, the council here is not living in a vacuum where we only take direction from residents. We also have our own minds, which is what we were voted to do, to make sure that we're watching what's going on. So all that said, I just want to make sure everybody understands the constructs of what's about to happen here in this particular discussion. Ms. Howell is not in trouble. This is a discussion about the organizational structure of the city. And I think it was January of 2024 that you were promoted to assistant city manager, is that correct? Or maybe February of 2024?
I believe that's correct.
In that space, yeah. Well, I remember this because it was only weeks after our infamous former city manager, Lance Petty, who was completely unqualified to be a city manager at the time, and still remains as such, I had promoted Ms. Howell from, or I should say, gave her the additional title of assistant city manager. And I mentioned this to Chief Howell even way back then, after I learned about it, that I did not think it was a good idea. It created a conflict of interest for the city, just because in the event that the city manager is out of pocket, terminated, and or incapacitated in one way or another, where they're not able to fulfill their duties, that you would then have somebody being their own boss. So you'd have the assistant city manager being the city manager, overseeing the chief. But if you wear the same hat at the same time, you really lose all sense of objectivity. And so that was the spirit of the initial problem that we had, is that even before the civil service, we had this problem. This created a problem. This created a conflict of interest for that very reason alone, that in the event that the city manager was incapacitated to fulfill their duties, that then the assistant city manager, in this case Ms. Howell, would be then effectively the manager of the city and the police department, and you can't have that conflict of interest. Certainly not actively, and certainly not potentially, and certainly not just thinking, well, only if it happens hypothetically. The whole point here is to make sure that we position the city organizationally, strategically, and carefully, so that we don't put ourselves in legal jeopardy, so that we don't put ourselves in moral dilemmas, so that we don't put ourselves in legal, did I say legal jeopardy? Maybe I said it twice for a Freudian slip. And so I want to have that discussion, and that's the first point. And I don't know if we want to go through each point, or I can make my case as to why I still believe that this is where we need to go. And maybe I'll go ahead and do that. Jerry, what do you think? Versus having a discussion on every point. You want me to just put them out there, and then we can all discuss at the end?
I think your first point, which is legal jeopardy, I think.
Conflict of interest, being your own boss, yep.
Your first point that you just said of legal jeopardy, I would like to
Well, I was saying being your own-
ask legal advice.
Yeah.
Legal, if
Let me, if I may, let me can or frame my first point. You cannot be your own boss. That was the reason why I was against it in the very first place in 2024. So that's my first point.
All right, what's your next?
Okay. So,
Give me your bullet points, and
Yeah,
we'll go through one by one. That'll
Okay,
give everybody a chance to think
sure.
about it.
Let me make sure I don't go out of order of my notes. Excuse me. Where we find ourselves today is, we find ourselves with a civil service. The public has voted upon that, and here recently, I can give you a couple of examples where the conflict of interest has already arose, where even the appearance of impropriety has been breached. And so the measure to make sure that either Ms. Howe is the full-time police chief or the full-time assistant city manager, and, you know, with all of our experience and strong managerial qualities here as a police chief, to remain as such, and then we then seek out a professional recruitment of an assistant city manager, so we avoid the current conflict of interest. And I'm happy to go into, and I will actually get into the examples of that. But in a nutshell, before the civil service was in place, there was a conflict of interest. And now that the civil service is in place, there remains a conflict of interest. And that conflict of interest really has been exemplified here recently in terms of the overall risk that the city is in, and for that matter, some of the breaches of objectivity, and for that matter, how the city should be run objectively, fairly, transparently, and without unfair influence. It really removes the checks and balances, which is why we have separate departments. This is why we have a city manager in charge of the police chief per the charter, so that there is those checks and balances. Without those checks and balances, our police chief, not Ms. Howe in particular, but any police chief, has really unchecked power, unchecked authority. And the room and the space created for malfeasance is born. And that's what we need to remove, right? I mean, it isn't enough that we've removed so many corrupt actors in our city halls over the last 3 years. It's not enough. We have to make sure that we are diligent in holding everybody accountable, that every board is transparent, but that also we manage the city correctly so that everybody understands their roles clearly. Because, and I'll give an example, one of about 4 that I'll give. You have the city manager who becomes incapacitated, unable to perform their duties, and so the individual wearing both hats, in this case Ms. Howe, is now her own boss, number one. But over what period of time, then we have police officers asking, well, shoot, who do I go to if I feel like I'm being attacked? I can't go to the city manager. I obviously can't go to the chief because that's who I feel weaponized against. That's who I feel marginalized against or from. And so that situation is one we need to avoid. It's very much in line with the backdrop story as to why we're even in a civil service. As you may recall, the police department came out very loudly last year that they did not trust the city manager to go to him for any complaints because he was actually weaponizing his authority against him, the officers. And that the city manager, Mr. Petty, of course, was also weaponizing his position to influence unfairly, and for that matter, abuse his authority against the police chief, Ms. Howe. And we know how that all went. But I state that because we need to make sure that the checks and balances are in place going forward. Not, well, let's just put a Band-Aid on it and we'll deal with it later. If a certain scenario comes up, why would anybody say, you know what, let's go ahead and put the baby seat in the back seat only after something happens, but what's really going to happen, right? So it's I say that as an example because it's that serious. And I can tell you the seriousness of it all goes into my second example. The seriousness of it all has been demonstrated in even here recently. And, you know, I'm not gonna sugarcoat this. You know, the city council received notice a couple of weeks ago, about 3 weeks ago, for the January, what was it, the first meeting, January 2nd? Is that right? What was the January 2nd meeting? That there was an agenda item to have the addition of a payment for a fire engine and an EMS truck. And it was being promoted by both Chief Howell and Chief Motley. And at the time, it was like, wait a minute, what's going on here? And it was improper for a variety of reasons. It was illegal for a variety of reasons. And so that checks and balances had to be made by council. And so fortunately enough, city management, city attorney had informed the council, and so the checks and balances was made. The correction was made. But imagine had Ms. Kelly been unavailable to perform her duties, that the chief or any chief would have that role. They would have still put it on the agenda illegally. And so this is about being proactive, being informed when we're here at council, trying to make sure that we don't make the wrong motions, illegal ones. But it's also about trying to make the right decisions beforehand. Why create a problem? Why create a political situation or a legal problem, a legal situation unnecessarily? And so those are my concerns in those two examples. But my third concern is really going back to how when the civil service was being conceptualized last January, and I remember those officers came out and reached out to myself, and I know they reached out to Councilman Davis. I do also know that you may remember in the meeting in February before the chief was suspended, that, illegally suspended, I might add. But the police officers came out here, the union representatives, they created a union, and then they were saying, hey, we want this on the election for the public to decide. And at the time, it was mostly because they were responding defensively to the attacks by Lance Petty. The attacks on them individually with weaponized investigations, criminal investigations, weaponized internal affairs investigations, all which turned out completely unfounded. And the council was able to receive those receipts. And so, at the time, you may recall then, when a conversation was asked, a meeting between this very early staged civil service union by the police department and the city manager, Lance Petty, and the city attorney, Olson and Olson, and myself and Jerry Kane, Lance Petty decided to go ahead and lawyer up. At which case, I said out loud that, hey, he pretty much disqualified himself and fired himself at that point. And that for that matter, he should be put on administrative leave at minimum. Instead, or I should say at the same time, everybody was reaching out, yet again, from the police department and city staff, that he was, in fact, very dangerous, likely to retaliate and go after other officers and other employees that didn't get in line. And sure enough, a couple of weeks later, Chief Howell was suspended without any due process. And so the checks and balances, that was a failure at the council level at the time. But these are the things that we have to be cognizant of. These are the things that we have to be sensitive about. That we do not need to be putting in or allowing these conflicts to persist. Something may not be coming up right now, but why are we going to wait till, well, let's just wait for the crisis to occur, because I guarantee you the crisis will occur again, in one form or another. And so I'm just saying, if we're going to do it, let's do it right. And my third point is this, is that fortunately, unfortunately, depending on where you stand on how informed you are about the civil service, and I would say I'm going to lean on, unfortunately, we now have a civil service. And I say that because I know that just in the last 2 meetings, it was abundantly clear that nobody here on council, much less anybody in the audience, in the public, the voting public even, had any clue what we had gotten ourselves into. And now we find ourselves in a huge predicament with this civil service. And the stories behind all of that is that, and the point, I should say, behind all of that is, how did we get here, and what can we do to prevent any other problems? Well, how we got here was the morale issue was being pushed. First, the morale issue was against Lance Petty. Then the morale issue was being turned around 180 within a matter of 3 or 4 days against Chief Howe. Fortunately, Chief Howe got reinstated, but then Mayor Kane and George from Ward C, decided to have a special meeting so that we could have all the officers come out here and express that they were still having a lower morale. And so then the civil service decides to, like, well, you know what, we're going to go ahead and follow through with this and make sure that this is on the agenda. So what happens in July, August? It gets on the agenda to be on the ballot for November, and it gets passed. Why? Because it's always about support the blue. That's why. Lost in the shuffle was all the politics behind it. Lost in the shuffle behind that vote was the conflict of interest. Lost in the shuffle of that vote, of that ballot issue, of whether the city of Freeport should or should not have a civil service, was that our police department was still in disarray, and today it still remains that. And unfortunately, I get the calls, and I know others do too, but I get the calls saying, hey, we have an issue still, and let's not even talk about morale. Let's just talk about the practicality of things. And I want to be, sensitive to the chief. I know she's been working very hard, and we had this conversation. As a courtesy, I reached out to Chief Howell to express my reasons as to why I put this on the agenda. And and then it goes back to, I had stated this before, I think there was a conflict before, there was a morale issue then, that we have problems getting our police department staffed. Well, during the budget cycle, I said, well, let's throw the kitchen sink. That was my phrase. Let's throw the kitchen sink and making sure that we get the cost of living adjustments, the right raises. Here recently, in the last 3 months, I've been saying, let's get that matrix fixed. And the response to me, what's been communicated to me has been, we still have problems. Our police department is still low morale. We're losing staff. I know that we've lost some officers, some commanding officers, I should say, and I know that there are others that are on the fence that are interviewing. And that's problematic to me because I'm thinking we need to make sure that the leadership in our police department is solid so that they have complete focus on that department and not distracted by the city management responsibilities. And I can tell you that when Chief Howell was reinstated and Lance Petty was fired, I was really glad that Chief Howell was the assistant city manager at the time to take on the reins. And I expressed to her just last week or the week before that I was really hoping that she would stay on until we actually did the true interviewing of the final candidates. And in this case, we were really fortunate to have Ms. Kelly be a part of that interview pool, finalist, and now our city manager. So, and I remember at the time, and I was a little disappointed to hear that Chief Howell did not want to be wearing those hats. It was too much. And I was hoping that she would change her mind and that she would stay the course. Instead, we ended up having an interim city manager in Dan Pennington. A lot of good things there, a lot of bad things there. Just being fair about this, that there were a lot of issues that came up that were either missed or mismanaged. And we can get into those details at another date. But for tonight, I want to make sure it's clear that we have a problem, and we don't need to exacerbate it. And so when we have a police department that needs full-time leadership, and when we have an assistant city manager position that also requires full-time attention, They cannot coexist at the same time. It is an injustice, a miscarriage of the budget and the monies and the tax dollars that the taxpayers entrust into the city hall to spend the money wisely, so to make sure that we have qualified staff in our city halls, not somebody learning on the job, not somebody 1 foot in, 1 foot out, but solidly. Because I believe that Chief Howe, as our police chief, is the best police chief probably in the county. And so I want her to be our police chief, but only our police chief, not our assistant city manager. I don't know what her credentials are. I don't know what Ms. Howe's credentials are, excuse me, as it relates to being an assistant city manager. But I know her credentials as a police chief are strong. And that we need to make sure that just as we found a very strongly qualified city manager to meet the needs of the city of Freeport, we need to do the same thing, not only at the assistant city manager, but at all positions, like our HR position, like our public works position, like our parks director position, like our EDC position, like our Main Street position, like our janitorial position. Everybody needs to sit in their role that is qualified and not wear multiple hats. And I'll make my last point here, that this multiple hat little program stinks of corruption. And I'm going to tell you why I have such a strong, stenchful distaste for it. Because as far back as Tim Kelty, it was, you either get in line or you're out of here. You're either going to do it with me or you're out of here. And so he basically started consolidating different director positions. And there was a little copycat program when Lance Petty got on board. And I can go more into how detrimental that is to the city, to any organization, especially when it mostly reeks of incompetence and corrupt cover-ups, which I have documented every which way, every each time. And so here I stand. I don't want there to be any other mistakes. I don't want to be up here at some point saying, hey, you know what? Our chief practiced some conflict of interest. It's corrupt. It needs to be addressed. Let's change it. Let's effect that change when we can do it proactively, politely, professionally, rightfully so. And it needs to be done sooner than later, because right now we need as much help as we can to make sure that our police department is functioning to serve our public, our safety needs, our security needs, so that we might be able to attract the great talent. And I always believe it starts at the top. So if Chief Howell is practicing her job with the integrity that she has been, it's going to trickle down. But if she's not able to focus on that entirely and primarily, there's no way it can be done. Not objectively, and certainly not efficiently. You cannot efficiently do both of these jobs. It's already been proven in the last 6 months that morale, I thought morale would go up, but in fact, it is at best remained low. But it's actually deteriorated because I know there's been some good officers that have left. And there were officers that were standing up here at one point receiving Employee of the Month. And that's problematic. We can't be losing the good guys. We can't be losing the good of the good guys. And that's all I have, Mayor.
Chief Howe, would you like to respond?
Well, I did want to make a comment. I've never tried to put a fire engine on the agenda, so I'm not sure where that came from. And I just asked Chief Motley if he had tried to as well, and he did not either. So I'm really not sure where that information came from.
There was a series of emails that the council received here in the last couple of weeks. I'm happy to share those later with you.
Yeah, I mean.
Absolutely.
Absolutely, because
Yeah.
I've never asked for a fire engine to be placed on there.
It was a budget amendment that was proposed by the finance director that was ultimately pulled.
Okay, yeah, I mean, that wouldn't have, I mean, I was in the email, but I mean, it was nothing that I had asked to have a fire engine placed on the agenda, so.
All right, well, I will revisit that email, and I'll happy to make it public and share the contents with you. I think you may have been CC'd on it, I'm not sure, I can't recall.
Yes, that's about, that email, I know
Yeah.
what she's referencing on,
Right.
that, you know, that, yes, there was a proposal of some budget amendments.
Correct.
And that was one of the things that, when Mr. Pennington was here, that due to some of the leftover funds from the previous year, on the potential to start earmarking those in the future, so it's not such a huge hit for the city all at once to replace something like a fire engine, because it's such a large amount, to be able to take some of those leftover funds each year and what he referred to as earmark those funds, to be able to start collecting up, so then that way the city could purchase and have, you know, if you will, almost payments being made as compared to one large hit at once. So I do know that was something that Mr. Pennington had started the discussions on, and then Ms. Hurst had prepared up that budget amendment. But again, like I said, that was nothing. I was not trying to illegally buy a fire truck or anything like that, so.
Well, I will say this, is that as it was presented to council, was that it was an improper amendment to the budget.
Now, and it's my understanding too that Ms. Hurst actually researched that and got that information corrected, and that what it was that she was trying to do was not illegal, and provided that information, actually, I believe, to Mr. Duncan on the documentation on that. So I think
Well-
there was just a miscommunication on some of that.
Well, I'm happy to delve into that, but I don't want to belabor the point just yet. I'm happy to get into those details, either tonight, we pull up those emails and go through that, but I want to make sure you have a chance to address the other items as well.
Yeah, I just wanted to state for the record that, I mean, I'm not putting anything on the agenda illegal, so, and like I said, spoke to Chief Motley, and he had not tried to put it on the agenda either, so I just wanted that clarified.
Did you want to respond to anything else that you heard, or do you want to hold off and?
I mean, I think at the end of the day, it's ultimately going to be, you know, council's decision and Dr. Kelly's decision. If council wants to grant to have two standing positions, and then at the end of the day, wherever it is that Dr. Kelly would like to place me, I mean, that's kind of where things land. I mean, I'm here for the city in whatever position and whatever capacity that they see fit for it. I told her today, you know, that if the decision was made to separate, that I had a series of questions over it, if I was given the choice, just because we're so new in our relationship, if you will, for, you know, trying to see what it is her vision is for the police department, for the city. I mean, those are things that she's still trying to develop as well. So for me to be able to, you know, go through these questions right now, I feel like would have been kind of unfair to her while she's still trying to learn the city and learn the system. And then in addition, I do want to state that, you know, at the time that I was interim, I never considered myself my own boss. I considered y'all my boss, because at the time I'm interim city manager. Now my position is that I report to y'all, because I moved into that, you know, temporary road. And then during that time, then Captain Brinkman became, you know, and oversaw for the police department, just as he did and everything when I was previously absent. So, so I just want to also state that at no time did I see myself as my own boss. I saw y'all, you know, or you all, I really shouldn't southern it that much, but I see council as my boss and everything during that time.
Well, I will just say this, is that, thank you for that response, but in response to your answer, you know, what we have here is, you know, it's not about being unfair, about the timetables that we might want to comfortably abide by. Yeah, I think you had shared with me, you had hoped that this would be addressed come budget period, and that we could address whether or not we want to make room for an assistant city manager, or for that matter, a dual role and having a raise and who knows what else. The problem is that we're all in the same boat, and we have a conflict of interest because the civil service is now in place. And it's of no comfort to anybody here sitting on council to have to be forced to fast track on this. I mean, we just fast tracked a whole brand new commission board, right? And we're having a meeting tomorrow, and that board is still learning. But on top of learning, there is a crisis right now in terms of the conflicts of interest. And then that's like the second layer of discussion on this matter as it relates to what we're dealing with now that is very time sensitive, that does not afford either the city manager or yourself or the council or the public let's just kind of see how this goes kind of latitude. We don't have that. We are under the crunch. We are under the crunch because this civil service program requires us to act legally. And part of that acting of legally requires that we also make sure that we don't put ourselves in any kind of conflict of interest or any appearances of impropriety. That was also demonstrated here recently when we were having these meetings about the agenda, and for that matter, how those meetings were going to be facilitated, if either Chief Howell or Chief Motley were going to be involved. Okay, and so that was really even the larger trigger here recently. And so the question was, well, is this legally a conflict of interest in addition to the practical sense of the matter? I mean, I just go back to the first one, right? You can't be your own boss. And if I'm the civil services, this is the second part of the second layer, Jerry, and that is, in the case that you're the assistant city manager and the police chief, that right there presents a conflict of interest because then you have the administration, city manager, assistant city manager, city attorney, CFO, and then you have the police chief, lieutenants, sergeants, et cetera, right? But then you have the civil service, which is this third party. And this third party cannot be negotiating with an individual who wears hats for the two of the other parties. And so this little triangulation that we are now faced with is a problem. It's a huge problem. It's a huge problem because, which was actually even, and I'll ask our city attorney to opine on this as to whether it's legal or not, number one, but also just in terms of the practicality of it all. I mean, it was a concession here even in the last very first civil service meeting where Mr. Ty Morrow and Mr. Moore and Mr. Hernandez were here and just fumbling through that process, trying to learn which way to go, that it was conceded by the chiefs that yes, and at the direction, to her credit, Ms. Kelly, instructing the chiefs, hey, do not attend this meeting. Another meeting of influence to the board was earlier in the week before, the Friday, there was going to be a meeting with the director, the chair, I should say, and that was also intercepted by Ms. Kelly, thankfully, to avoid any impropriety or of impression of impropriety. And so it's already being evidenced. We had a problem with a meeting that we can have, the chief can have with the chair. We had a problem with the chiefs trying to direct the civil service, when in fact the civil service falls under the administration side, more in terms of its organization, more of its facilitation. And so, as a police officer even, if somebody feels like, hey, you know, I really can't go to the chief, I'm going to go to the civil service, but now civil service is kind of quarterbacked by the administration with the city manager and the assistant city manager. Where do I turn? And that's the problem that's really existential for every officer, which creates a discomfort, which creates a lower morale, which also creates an environment that says, you know what, we're not coming to Freeport because they have this civil service and there's all this conflict of interest, illegalities. So, you know, as we're on this point here, I wanted to ask here in public the legalities of the position of chief wearing both the chief, the hat of the police chief and the assistant city manager.
Legal, is there any conflict of interest having the chief of police as the assistant city manager?
Okay, so I believe that there is no legal conflict between being the city manager and the police chief at the same time. At one point that Mr. Pena brought up about being the city manager and the police chief at the same time, I believe that that violates the charter, because the charter is very clear. You're going to have a city manager and you're going to have a police chief, and the city manager manages or supervises the police chief, and the police chief is to carry out the mission of the police department as set forth and envisioned by the council. So I think that that arrangement would cause problems as far as being a violation of the charter, because the charter is very clear. If it was the
May I interrupt? You first said there wasn't anything illegal, but then you said it violates the charter. Is violating the charter illegal?
No, you misunderstood me.
Please help to clarify.
Yeah. The position as assistant city manager and police chief is not a legal conflict. However, if the assistant city manager becomes the city manager and the police chief at both times, the city charter is very clear that requires to be two people, right? Those are two separate positions, and so you have a situation where, let's say you have a different department head is the head of their department and the city manager at the same time. That wouldn't be a problem, because those department heads are not specified as being separate people in the charter, right? So being both the city manager and the police chief, I think, violates the charter. Being the assistant city manager and the police chief, I do not believe, it does not violate the charter, and I don't see any legal conflict. Now,
But let me interrupt again, if you don't mind. And that's my whole point. My whole point is, I didn't even consider the charter component, but the charter component underlines it, boldfaces it, sets it clear. You can't have it. So why would we put ourselves in position to be in that position of violating the charter?
Which is why when I was interim city manager, Captain Brinkman was interim police chief, to
Well,
again have that separation.
Again, the idea that we're going to then have this automatic trigger so that people can just get into these default roles that they're not prepared to handle, that they're not trained to handle, may not be having the credentials to handle in wearing both hats, when both positions, I mean, we're not talking about the guy that runs the lawnmower and the guy that runs the ditch digger. We're not talking about the guy that coaches the basketball team and the guy that coaches the baseball team. We're talking about the most senior positions in a municipal entity. And so again, I'm asking, why would we go in this half-baked? Why would we go into this half-cocked, whatever you want to use, the expression you want to use, but we're not going into this saying we're going to be ready with the best persons focused on their jobs, doing their best jobs. Because we just finished cleaning up some fat in the city hall where there were some redundancies. There was exposure of folks that didn't know what they were doing in their jobs over the last 5 months. And the city is better for it. And the city's going to be better for it to not put ourselves in a position where, yeah, when it hits the fan, we got somebody will just step up. No. We should have people in place, period, that are qualified experts in their positions in those very roles, not sharing hats, because in addition to the conflict of interest that it creates in the violation of the charter, one of the issues that I had early on, as I mentioned with Kelty and with Petty, and the initial move to have Ms. Howell as the assistant city manager, is that it's politically wrought with peril. And at the time, I didn't know how Chief Howell would be handling it, nor do I know how she would be handling it going forward. But I can tell you right now, I've seen enough to know back then and even now, it creates way too many problems, and it's already been articulated by legal that it it violates the charter when that happens. Why would we allow something to remain that would then end up resulting in an unpredictable, at any given moment, charter violation?
And I would also want to respond. I don't think that the police chief becoming the city manager, interim city manager, and designating somebody else as the interim chief, I don't think that makes it legal, because if the interim city manager was also, you didn't stop being the police chief, right? So if they terminated you, we would still have to follow all the rules that we follow for police chief, for police officers, and so forth, right? So, I don't think that is holding both I don't think that's cured by saying, well, unless you resigned as a police chief, but you really were still the police chief. You were just like, well, I'm going to turn over responsibilities to somebody else. But
Right, because
yeah.
it was just for a couple of weeks
Right.
till y'all got in your permanent interim, if you will.
Right. Well, but, even if, I don't think it, I think it violates the charter for the police chief to be the interim city manager and then have somebody else as the interim police chief, because you were still actually held the position of the police chief. You weren't terminated as police chief. You still had, if they fired you as city manager, you would still be the police chief, right? So that's where I think that there could potentially be a problem. But then holding the position as assistant city manager and police chief, I don't think produces a legal conflict. And we, Councilman Pena mentioned this a little bit. I think that it's problematic for the chiefs, not just the police chief and fire chief, to interact with the Civil Service Commission, and so the same thing would follow if in the role as assistant city manager, you would need to avoid interaction with the Civil Service Commission as far as directing them or training them or those things. But then, if absent that, if you did other duties as assistant city manager and the police chief, I don't think that that's a legal problem.
Well, and just to add as well, when I had sent the email out to all of council regarding the Civil Service Commission, it was never my intent nor Chief Motley's intent to create any type of, misconception or, impropriety of anything. We deemed it as, okay, this has happened. These are our departments. We've got to get the ball rolling, if you will, and we've got to get things starting moving forward. And so we're just both go-getters. So it was, okay, we got to hit the ground running, and we had so many days to get the commission set up, and then the transition of city managers that was going on at the time, and it was kind of a crazy time that all that was happening. And like I said, it wasn't our intent to come across as any type of, viewed in that point. It wasn't our intent. We weren't going to be the ones training the commission. We weren't going to be the ones doing orientation. We were, again, wanting to find that subject matter expert. Mr. Duncan had sent the one email about the attorneys, and that was our conversation, but I had also not finished gathering all those names, and so that's why I hadn't turned them over. But as soon as it came about that was being viewed in some form or fashion by members of the council, Chief Motley and I both immediately just took our hands off everything. I gave all my information over to Dr. Kelly. We didn't attend the last meeting. I advised my staff why I wasn't going to be attending, because I didn't want my staff feeling like, well, wow, she's not even going to the Civil Service Commission. And Chief Motley felt the same way, that we kind of were like, what are the boots on the ground going to be like? The chiefs don't even care enough to attend the meetings, because I will tell you, in the research that I've done with the other departments, the chiefs are very involved with the Civil Service Commission. They do reports to the Civil Service Commission. They provide them information. They let them know how their standard operating procedures go. That way the Civil Service Commission can help create those local rules to be able to go forward. It's not that we're guiding them or directing them, it's we're information sharing with them. And at no time was it our intent to give that misconception that we were trying to guide or steer them. And like I said, as soon as it came out on that, that's why we both immediately, removed ourselves from it and and neither of us will be at the meeting tomorrow night. We're both going to be in attendance at the BCCA instead, because again, we don't want to give that wrong perception.
Well, I would say this. Intention is irrelevant to a large degree here. It's a matter of the perception, because that was the perception. that was
Perception
being
is
received.
reality.
Yeah,
I understand.
yeah. And so, the intentions, is one thing, but the reality is, it was communicated by, I'll just say anonymous sources. Anonymous employees, anonymous officers, anonymous board members, anonymous residents, that there needed to be a clear delineation between civil service, chiefs, and the commissioners in the city. And, I mean, it didn't take, a lot of convincing for me to see the problems with it. And that's why I keep bringing it up. To me, it's more of the same, but it's even more important. It's time sensitive, and I think it's legally binding, and obviously, putting ourselves in a position, yet again, to violate the charter is, to me, just the same as trying to vote on an illegal resolution. And so I feel very strongly about this, that we can make this change, and you can still be the police chief, and we can be successful, and Ms. Kelly can go out and do a professional search for an assistant city manager. Or if you wish to change careers and become an assistant city manager, that when we do, in fact, decide to move forward with an assistant city manager, that we allow you to also participate in that particular job search, or I should say, staff search. So, I hope everybody can appreciate one thing here, is that, I'm not trying to beat around the bush. I'm also, very cognizant of the fact that there are sacred cows in the municipal world. Our first responders. So you got to be very delicate on how you either critique or instruct in a public forum. I'm completely aware of that. But it doesn't stop me from speaking out on the truths that have been expressed to me. This is not personal. This is something that I see clear as day. But it's also reinforced by residents, by city staff, by police officers, by the realities of the morale that we have, by the reality of the deficiencies that we have, and that the reality that I still believe that you're still the right person for the police chief position. If I didn't believe that, there'd be a much different conversation.
I appreciate that.
Yeah.
And if I could, because we've kind of talked around it, and I know that I'm prepared some information, but just, generally speaking about trying to understand the relationship of the parties is, before civil service, you have the chief, fire chief, police chief, whichever chief, right? And they want to either, discipline or fire an employee. So typically, maybe not all the time, but typically, then they would talk with HR, and they get guidance on the policy and make sure the paperwork is in order and documentation and so forth. And then the chief would, fire or police, would fire or discipline the employees, right? And the civil service statute specifically says, hey, we need to create this system to prevent the officers from being treated unfairly due to politics, right? And so the Police Officer Association, typically if they want a civil service, they're saying, hey, this process, I'll do like you did with imaginary things in the sky with your hand, right? So you have the police chief, HR, and then the employees, and also they follow the city HR rules too, right? And so the police officers say, hey, this system is broken. We don't like this system. We want another system. We want to take the city HR out of it. We want to take the chief. The chief can make a recommendation, but we want a completely independent civil service commission that when the chief makes a recommendation, we got somebody else to double check and, approve it or not approve it, right? And so the whole idea is that the Civil Service Commission is going to be this independent body that's not pro-chief, it's not pro-officer, it's completely independent. And so you don't want any perception that, hey, the civil service, they're very chummy with the chief or whatever, so they're just going to rubber stamp whatever the chief wants to do or whatever, right? And then the other thing is when you create your local rules, they actually can create their own HR rules, like, okay, what type of things do you get in trouble for? What type of things do you get written up? What kind of things are you terminated for? Your vacation policy, your sick leave, all those things are now up in the air that the Civil Service Commission can determine. So they're not necessarily bound by the city's HR rules anymore. They have their own HR rules. Now, a lot of cities, what they do is they just adopt the city HR rules and then make some additional changes, right? So the fundamental parts of the HR are the same. But so just from the, and without getting into any potential legal conflicts, but just the whole setup is that this Civil Service Board is supposed to be completely independent of the chief because the two chiefs, because they actually grade their paper, so to speak, right? The chief says, hey, we think this person needs to be fired, and the chief has to put down the reasons, and then the commission decides, right? So the chiefs in a way answer to the commission doesn't answer to the chiefs, right? So it's just careful that because the voters, not just the police association, said, hey, our system's broken, we want something different, right? The voters voted and approved it, right? That, hey, that system's not working, we want a different system, right? And, maybe voters knew. Maybe voters just said, hey, the police want it, we want to support the police, so we'll vote for it, right? Maybe nobody knew exactly how the system works or is meant to work, right? Maybe there wasn't a big complaint necessarily about, the system, at least with the voters. But the voters have voted, and the police officers have asked for it, and now it's been granted. So we have to make sure that we do everything to assure the voters and assure the officers that the commission is completely independent of the chiefs because they're overseeing the chiefs as far as their decisions, right? So just for people that trying to get an idea of like, well, what's the deal? Why is that a problem? It seems to make sense that the chiefs would be really involved with the commission. It's just still making sure that you have the very clear
Checks and balance.
checks and balances, and apparently, it needs to. Everybody needs to see that the commission is completely independent, right?
Well, let me add to that point that you just made. Yeah, the residents voted for the civil service. But let's be abundantly clear. It was the police association that pushed it. And the police association isn't this collection of police officers countywide. They are specifically our Freeport police officers. And they pushed it through. And even after all the tumultuous and criminal activity that was over the summer of '25, they said, you know what? We still want this. We still need this. We still feel that this is necessary. And then they came to council, and it was voted upon unanimously. So this was voted upon by the police officers, not so that we could have the civil service playing footsies with the chief, or that the civil service could be playing footsies with the officers, but that there would be a fair and balanced, complete checks and balance, separation of powers in place so that they could feel heard, so that they could feel safe, so that they could feel supported. That's why that was created. And we need to make sure that we continue to preserve that whole intention by our police officers. And it was then also supported by our voters. Because they're thinking, hey, those are the guys that protect us. Those are the guys driving at middle of the night, dodging bullets, making those calls, going into the dark corners of our city. And we got to give them our best to have a fair chance, not only on the streets by being well-equipped, but also having a fair chance here in City Hall when it comes to HR issues, so that they are heard and they feel heard, respected, and treated fairly. Otherwise, they're going to leave too. And it'll just continue being this ugly cycle. And so I think one very simple step is to allow our illustrious chief to remain the chief. But if she should decide to go the other way and be on the administration side, then there are procedures and steps for that. But I've already expressed my support for you to be in the chief.
Well, and just to also add too, I told Dr. Kelly, I said, you know, I do not know Ty Morrow like a number of other individuals. I understand probably that y'all do, or even some of the employees. But I told her, I said, in my 3 years of knowing Ty Morrow, nobody manipulates or controls Ty Morrow. He is very much his own individual with his own mind. And one of the reasons that I thought was going to be, you know, an excellent choice for the commission, not only because he had previous civil service experience, but due to the fact that he wasn't going to be swayed by anybody. He, truth be told, he wouldn't care anything about what I had to say or what Chief Motley had to say. He would care about the facts. And so that was one of the reasons I was ecstatic for him being selected, because just in what I know of him and the workings I have had with him, I was like, yeah, at the end of the day, I don't know why anybody would think that, you know, Ty Morrow could be controlled or manipulated. But, you know, again, and that's why Chief Motley and I have, you know, because of that perception and perception reality, like I said, which is why we, you know, are not, you know, trying to completely remove ourselves from this. But, you know, in addition to, I mean, the Civil Service Commission's a public meeting. It's a public meeting that we could still attend. It's on my off time. I could still come and attend that in my off time. Chief Motley could come and attend that in his off time. It's kind of hard to make a direct order, you know, to state you cannot attend a public meeting during my own personal, you know, time. But again, it was very important to us to not have that perception and to not have that misconception. And so anything that we could do to help remove that was what we wanted to be able to be a part of. And I was about to say, I'm speaking for Chief Motley, but if I was about to say, if he would like to come up and say anything as well. I mean, we've had several conversations on that, and so.
Well, I don't need Chief Motley to come. He's not the discussion talking point here.
Well, since you were bringing up on civil service, that's why I was stating on that.
I can understand that. I also don't want to debate the merits of Mr. Morrow either. I want to make sure that we keep it even independent of yourself as a name. It's really the titles and how the operation of the city is going to be able to move forward effectively, fairly, checks and balance wise, not violating the charter, you know, not waiting for something to happen that none of us can predict. And, you know, I just want to make sure that we're clear on that too.
Yes, sir.
Council, anyone else have something they would like to add or ask? Councilman Davis.
Yes, sir. Good evening. I gotta wake up. No. Hey, first of all, I just want citizens to know that, hey, the chief is not in no trouble. She didn't do anything wrong. She didn't do, I mean, this is not to fire her. This is, you know, so people, I don't want people to get it twisted.
Oh, the rumors have already been swirling. I've been asked a lot.
So we want to know, I mean, if anybody who's still with us know that Councilman Davis not throwing rocks at the chief, and we not making no saying that she done nothing wrong. She didn't do anything wrong, not to my knowledge, you know. So this is not what this is about. And I met with the chief. She can contest to that. I mean, this ain't nothing that we just threw up on her or swung up on her, you know. I blindsided her out of nowhere, you know. At least I didn't, because I know I came to your office and sit down and talk to you face to face.
You've told me even before we had that conversation a couple of weeks ago.
So, yeah, so, I mean, so don't let the people talking about Councilman Davis, you know, trying to do something. No, he ain't
And that's
trying to
why
do
I asked for it in public, just to help dilute any of those misconceptions.
Well,
I
that's
thought that would
good.
help with dispelling rumors.
Yeah, so, but, you know, once again, express my concern. I think you're doing a good job as a police chief, just the city manager. I mean, and it go back to, how we got here, how you got there, I mean, at first, well, that's our conversation, but we don't have to go into all of that, but, you kind of, was iffy, I don't know if I want to, so we don't, but we had this conversation way back whenever this happened, how we got here. And then as we go on, the conflict of interest for me is like it's gonna expose itself. It's gonna come to the top, as say for instance, so when we went through all of that with you and Lance, okay, you were the assistant manager then, and and I could tell that maybe, that's gonna be a conflict of interest. I mean, what is the intentions of putting her there? And now we got the police chief and the police department, and now you're putting her in a bind. You're putting her in a bind because you want to discipline the police officers, but then now you got her over here as your assistant. So now she trying to, do the, I don't know, you the boss. Now I'm working for the big boss, and he trying to discipline my employees, our employees, but you were just in a bind to me, and then he gets fired. Okay, now your workload goes up. Well, first of all, you lost the police department somewhere in there whenever you was suspended. Okay, now you come back and you still in this role. He's gone, now you got more to do, because then we still had to get Dan. We still had to get Dan here. And then so you was just doing too much.
Oh, I was exhausted.
You was exhausted. I mean, we already spoke about this type of stuff, but, and then, we go through the process or whatever, and I just think that the police department needs their leader there full time after all that y'all been through. I mean, you still have to divide your time with the city and the police department, and you still haven't got it back to where you know that you're capable of running a police department. You can't, because you have these two hats and a lot going on, and so that's just a lot to me, and it's gonna cause, and it's gonna bring it back to the light again, now that we have the civil service thing. I mean, it's a lot for everybody, because now that's something that you ain't know nothing about. So you got to learn all of that. You got to learn all that. Then you still got to run over here and get all this stuff with the city going on. And then you still got this stuff here at the police department going on. And I have to run that. No, you have lieutenants and captains and everybody, But it ain't nothing like being in the building, trying to build your program instead of building it from the house,
I could do this from the house? Nobody told me that.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of like doing that. If you're over there in the city hall all the time and you got things going on over here in the police department, and they're like, well, where the chief at? Well, she over there in the meetings over there. She over this, that. But we got to do it. We got to figure it. I'm in charge right now or whatever, So, but we just need, it's just a lot as we're trying to figure out this civil service thing. And then so if, God forbid something was to happen, city manager can get sick. Okay. She gone for 6 months.
Wow, that's a big sickness.
Now we got, now you have to do this all over again. Now we got to promote somebody else or pass the buck to somebody else, and I don't know what y'all call it now. Now you the intern, or you you stepped away from the police chief, but you still a police chief. I mean, I just think we need to get rid of that. You go back to the police and focus and make the Freeport Police Department the best police department that you can make them and be there, and y'all rise up together. The city of Freeport, we need to get another assistant city manager, and everybody need to focus on this civil service, and y'all grow and bond together and grow and just build that police department back up. So that's my, you know, that's my whatever on this.
Your 2 cents.
Yeah, that's my 2 cents. Thank you, Mayor. That's my 2 cents on this. But once again, I don't have to tell, but I already told you, I don't have nothing against you. You know, when you went through your situation, I was on the front line, you know, verbal and, you know, fighting for you to, you know, to return here. So I don't have no, it's not, that has nothing to do with it. I want you to be the best you can be at your position. And let's rise together as Freeport, because we got to build the police department back up, and then we got a lot of work over here to do to build the city of Freeport back up. And we have to work together to do it. And if we don't have to wear all these hats, I think that we will grow, and everybody will be, you know, just lift the weight off of each other. And I mean, let's grow together, and that's it, man. That's it. But thank you for all you do, because you have done, I mean, when you got here, transparency just came up. I mean, it was just, bam, it just opened up the doors, and you showed us a way, you know, that, oh, this can run like this, you know. So, I mean, I thank you for everything that you have done and that you are doing.
How about this side of the table? Councilman Rosso?
Enough said.
Amen.
I didn't finish.
Councilman Matamoros?
Oh, I have to close it off with one more. So I have to make a recommendation to the chief, to the city manager, that is my recommendation, that the chief goes back to the police department, and we open up for you a new city manager assistant.
All right, thank you, Councilman. Chief, I would like to say, you know, it's greatly appreciated that you stepped up in time of need. On the evening that Mr. Petty was released, we had the conversation up front, and you stepped in right away. I appreciate the fact that you had Mr. Brinkman to oversee the operations at the police department. So for that and the way you handled it, hats off. Council, as I see it, we do not appoint a assistant city manager. We don't hire assistant city manager. We don't have a whole lot of say-so in the assistant city manager. That decision belongs to the city manager. So, you know, in my opinion, Dr. Kelly's going to have to sit down and think of a job description of the assistant city manager. You know, is this going to be does this need to be a full-time position? Does it need to be a 20-hour-a-week position? Or does it need to be a position where someone fills in when you go on vacation? You know, seriously. So, you know, I think first of all, she needs to figure out what kind of assistance she needs. And I honestly don't know if she knows at this point what kind of assistance she needs. I do recall when Mr. Kelty appointed or made Mr. Petty the assistant. To him, it was someone that'll stand in whenever I'm on vacation, whenever I'm, home with the flu or what have you. Someone that, the citizens and the employees can reach out to in his absence. I do not know if the workload has progressed to the point to where we need something beyond that. But that's a decision that Dr. Kelly's going to have to make, and just going to have to figure out how we're going to fill it. So I think council is pretty much on board with giving you that direction.
Well, let me help to give some clarification to that, Mayor. Ultimately, it's the responsibility of the city manager to make the decisions of the city hall staff, outside of the city attorney and the police chief. That still goes through council, as does her own position. But the city manager does not live in a vacuum and does not operate in a vacuum. The role of city manager in the city of Freeport requires that, because this is, again, residents, council, city hall staff, they take guidance and direction from the city. So I'm hoping that that not only Ms. Kelly, heeds, or I should say, studies exactly the needs of the city, but also heeds the feedback from the council, who also sees the needs of the city, and to make sure that we do not create any more legal pitfalls that we've already been experienced, even in the short time that Ms. Kelly has been our city manager, that I'm not at liberty to get into. But I can tell you this, this is not a play, this is not a game up here that we're playing. These are people's lives. These are millions of tax dollars that we all have to take very seriously, every one of us up here. And if you're not taking it seriously, you do not belong in City Hall. That goes from the top to the lowest person on the totem pole. There are no freebies. You have to do the job. You have to do it right. And at the end, ultimately, we are elected as councilmen to give that direction to City Hall. Because we can't rely on the Mr. Cools to come up here and complain 4 months in a row. No, we need to act. We are the ones that are making the decisions, directing the city manager. It's not the other way around. The city manager does not tell the city council what to do. The city council instructs the city manager what the will of the council is. And, the will of the city council is also such that we want the city manager to succeed. We want her to succeed so that the city of Freeport succeeds. And I'll just leave it at that. Thank you, Mayor.
If I may, I have been very forthcoming with Chief Howell about this very topic. I think it was probably week 2 that I was here. I had a conversation with her about splitting this position. I see these as 2 absolutely full-time positions that require full-time dedication to each. And that's not a pejorative to you, Chief, at all. She's exemplary in every fashion. There's just not enough hours in the day for her to dedicate to both positions effectively. I was going to address this at the budget time so that we could adequately fund for a new position, but since we're at this point much sooner, that's where I'm heading, is splitting these positions, just so you know my point.
Thank you, ma'am. Cool. Chief, thank you.
Thank you.
I believe we're finished with this item.
Sir.
Thank you.
With that being said, it is now 9:49. I told my kids we'd probably be out by 10, but I think I missed it. We're going to go into executive session. Executive session regarding consultation with attorney and deliberation regarding status update on suit against the city by Jerry Lance Petty. We have consultation with attorney, deliberation regarding real property, and that's it. So it is, what time do we say? 9:50. We are in executive session. We're going to take